We are in a specific mood today. I don't know what's happening.
I love that you say it's a specific mood, but a few moments ago you said, I'm in a mood that I cannot label or define.
It's so vague that it's a very specific level of vague, you know?
Yes,
It's a
completely.
yeah.
We are
And by
both on the
we
same page.
I mean me. Christine has to deal with this in real time. Sorry.
No,
It's a
don't worry, I'm with you.
it's a combination of sleep deprivation and also being well rested, which is why it's so vaguely specific. Because I spent the last like 2 or 3 nights, I'm not kidding, not sleeping at all. I like could not sleep for
Oh
some reason.
no.
And then last night I only slept for a short period of time, but really deeply. So I can't tell if I'm rested or not. So
I
that's
have had
that.
that a few times in the last 2 days where I keep checking if I'm dreaming because I'm like, something feels weird, like I'm not fully present and alive,
Yeah.
which maybe I'm just vibing off of you. I'm not sure. It's also our second day recording in a row, which should be interesting because Em is leaving to surprise Linda tomorrow
I'm leaving inside
on
Jim's
American
car.
Airlines. Oh,
I'm going to visit my mom, or by the time
yay.
you've heard this, I'm already gone. So
I'm already gone.
hope you're having fun past M because it's over. So
It's all over now. Why do you drink? Is that why you drink this week, or is it because you don't sleep, or is it because of the vagueness? What's the reason?
I mean, quite a plethora of things all in one. I right now the reason I drink, if I were to give my anxiety a label, it would be because I haven't traveled in a year, and I'm literally like tomorrow going to be on a plane. So I'm
Wow.
surprisingly freaked out. But I think that's probably human nature because like I have I like my brain only knows one thing now, and now I'm about to like go into the public and interact with people, and I've definitely developed some uh like very mild agoraphobia after being quarantined this entire time and isolated. The only person outside of RJ and Allison I've seen is Eva. So I'm really it's kind of jarring to know I'm going to be in a huge space full of people and like I have to sit next to people, and it's going to freak me out a little bit.
Yeah, it's not fun on a regular day, let alone after you haven't done it for a year. I'm
Because
with
of a
you.
pandemic.
Yeah, because of danger. Yeah,
Uh-huh.
I'm with you. I'm a homebody. I don't like to be social. I mean, under very specific circumstances, maybe, but
Well, I
but no,
definitely
not
have some
really.
like germ fears now because even though I'm vaccinated, I just spent the whole year telling myself if I even like stepped outside, like I might get fucking COVID. So now I'm about to like go sit like in this little space of recycled air, and like I know they say that like it's not as bad as I'm making up, but like comparatively to like just sitting in my house,
Listen,
it's
I
a little
flew to you
jarring.
4 times and you didn't seem to have a problem with that. So, you know
Because I
what?
didn't have to do it. I'm happy that I'm happy you were safe, but I also am happy I didn't have to do it because that sounded really stressful.
Well, I'm glad you're safe and we're all vaccinated now. And by we're all, I mean like you, me, Eva. So I'm thrilled about that. But
The trifecta.
the only people that matter. I'm just kidding. Yeah, well, that's a good reason.
Why do you drink?
Thank you. Sorry. I knew
Oh,
you were gonna ask. I just didn't know how to segue into you asking me. So first of all, I'm drinking
what?
taro bubble tea because remember we talked about it recently.
Yeah.
So I'm drinking some taro bubble tea, and it's delicious. Uh-oh, there goes my ah!
Oh, I thought you were like doing a very like I thought you were so into your bubble tea that you were doing like a pan or something.
Yeah, the pan was dropping the computer directly into my lap and my face and my beverage.
I see. I thought it was like truly meant for dramatic
It's
cinematic
like old
effect.
school zooming. I just like throw my body into the camera. Sorry about that. I would never be like a QVC presenter because clearly I don't know how to operate myself. So this is my bubble tea. It's
Mm-hmm.
very good. Also, drink because I have I so
Are you? Is it twins? What?
no. Oh God. Sorry. I would
I can't
be,
take it. Not
trust
today.
me. I don't think I'd be here. I'd be like comatose somewhere, sleeping my anxiety away. But no. So the last couple of days, I've had a feeling something was wrong with Geo, and I swear it sounds so
Oh yeah, you did
cliche.
tell me.
Yeah, right. Okay, so I it sounds so cliche, but I feel like being pregnant has made me like more in tune and like having weird dreams and be like more, I don't
Sure.
know, I can just like be more astute about things. And something was off with Gio, and basically everyone was like, he's fine. And I was like, his breath smells bad. And they're like, his breath, it's a dog. His breath always smells bad. And I was like, it's different. I just knew something was wrong. And so
you need that damn pregnancy nose to sniff out the different dog breaths. Like,
well,
I'm just saying.
But that's the thing too, is people were like, well, you're pregnant. It's probably because you're and I was like, yeah, good point. But I was like, I just like yesterday he came up and like laid his head on me and I was like, something's wrong. Like he's a sweet dog, but he's not usually like that in my grill. And I don't know. I feel like everyone was kind of like, okay, Christine. And so I took him to the vet and they called to check him in and they were like, so what's wrong with him? And I was like, his breath smells. And they were like, is he eating and walking? And I was like, yeah. And so I took him in and I felt really silly. And then they called me like 20 minutes later and they were like, his tooth is fractured and like everything under it is like totally like rotted and infected because he broke his tooth on a bone or something. And like, and they're like, yeah, so we need to do surgery. And I was like, oh my God. Okay. So anyway, my poor baby is sick and they did blood work and they haven't given him anything for pain or antibiotics because they're waiting on his blood work. So now I'm just like, oh, my poor baby. But now I'm like, see, I told you guys something was wrong.
His maternal instincts are kicking in.
I know.
Have you experienced anything like that yet? Any like maternal, like any heightened emotions toward? I mean, I don't know what maternal instincts are apparently, but I don't know. I like to think once you become a mom, you just kind of deserve that like weird adrenaline strength. Like you should just have that 24/7.
Yeah,
so,
why
like,
am I not strong enough yet?
Let me know when you lift a bus. That'd be pretty
everyone
cool.
keeps telling me to stop lifting things, so I can't test it out yet. So I'll let you know. I did go to the doctor today, or the midwife, and she was like, I know you. She's like, I don't know you, but I know people who are pregnant tend to become suddenly very convinced that they are going to like move or redecorate their whole house or like build a building. And I was like, yeah, I did kind of just buy like 6 pieces of furniture and decide I knew how to install chandeliers. And she was like, you need to cool it, is what she said.
What's the psychology to that? Like trying to like control something that you're scared of?
I think it's like nesting, which is like the worst word ever, but it's like you're trying to like make your home.
Oh,
like,
see, I would think of, because I am not in a place anyway that I want a child. Congratulations, by the way.
Which is fascinating because you keep saying you're the one who's always like, oh, I have a plan for all my future children.
It's not right now. I do have a big plan when I'm ready.
You're like way more organized and prepared than I am. You're just like, give me a minute.
And what's wild is like, I fucking love kids and like kids love me. Like I've never met a kid that like we weren't homies by the end of the day. Like I'm cool with babies and all that. But like the idea of like being responsible to keep it alive for the rest of my life, absolutely not.
Can you not say that to me right now?
Oh, right. Okay, sorry. I'm just kidding.
We have a show to record. I'm just
kidding. But what was I gonna say? Oh, I would be rearranging everything because like I'm gonna be full-blown panic stricken when I find out that I'm gonna have a kid, and I would be doing that as like distractions.
Oh yeah, I mean, there's plenty of that. There's plenty of Yahtzee on my phone and other fun things that keep my mind at bay. But definitely a lot of projects. And since I was so sick for 13 weeks, suddenly you're like, I have energy again. I'm gonna build a fence. Like I don't know. It's really ridiculous. I'm trying to learn how to garden. I don't know. I've just become a weird person.
You're becoming a mom, yo.
Ew. Well, too bad. My 16-year-old sister is coming over and teaching me how to garden. So I'm like, I guess she's the mom. Like I don't really know. Anyway, it's really not that interesting, except my poor baby Gio, my firstborn, is sick and his tooth is ouchy, and they showed it to me and it looks really ouchy. And so I just have to wait for him to get his little surgery next week. But anyway, that's my news. Sorry, that's why I drink.
You can just give him a little straw of peanut butter. He'll have a good time, and it's soft. It won't hurt his teeth.
I know. I've been giving him like little, soft things. We don't eat meat, so we don't have meat in the house, which I'm sure he hates. But
that poor dog.
That poor dog, I know. But peanut butter is always a winner.
We always talk about ThirdLove and how wonderful their bras are, and they have now also introduced not just bras, but loungewear.
I'm
So it's
so
just getting comfier
excited.
over here.
I know, and especially now that I don't wear, jeans anymore. Hello, at quarantine. But also now that I'm preggers, I only want to wear comfy clothes for the rest of time. So I feel like Third Love is doing this just for me. They're not, but I feel like they are. So thank you, Third Love, for making my life easier.
So introducing Lounge by Third Love. From lazy Sundays on the couch to weekend outings, Third Love loungewear is made to wear everywhere. It's got premium cotton fabrics available and the drapey easy fits that are sized extra small to 3XL.
They stand behind their products. If you don't love it, exchanges and returns are free. And Third Love's team of expert fit stylists are available via chat or email to answer any and all of your questions. Don't even worry about it.
Treat yourself with something that fits like it was made just for you with Third Love. Go to thirdlove.com/drink now to get 20% off your first purchase.
That's thirdlove.com/drink for 20% off today.
Christine, it was just Mother's Day, and I think I win Kid of the Year because I got my mom Brooklinen. It was, I'm telling you, I felt good about the purchase. I don't know if she's gotten it yet, but she's going to definitely like that purchase. I promise you that. And if you would like your space to be a perfect little refuge, oasis, however you need it for yourself, I'm telling you, get some comfy Brooklinen and your room is completely redone.
Honestly, Linda is a very luxurious person, and I feel like she's going to be all over this stuff. Brooklinen was started to create beautiful, high-quality home essentials that don't cost an arm and a leg. Don't tell Linda that; she will never know. And they work directly with manufacturers to make luxury available directly to you without those luxury level markups, so you can get their amazing array of products at a reasonable price. That's how Em and I have such beautiful oases of bedrooms.
Yes, the oases, as they say. So give yourself the comfort refresh you deserve and get it for less at Brooklinen. Go to brooklinen.com and use promo code ATWWD to get $20 off with a minimum purchase of $100.
That's BROOKLINEN.com and enter promo code ATWWD for $20 off with a minimum purchase of $100. That's brooklinen.com, promo code ATWWD.
All right. Well, I've got a story for you. I was going to try to relate it to Geo, but I have no idea how I would do that. I was going to try to segue really nicely, and it's just not going to happen. So this is something I'm shocked I haven't covered yet. But this is the Kraken.
Interesting.
Yeah.
Yeah, I know nothing. I know the Kraken. That's about it.
I feel like not to give a sour review of my own research, but I feel like I learned some things and then also learned nothing. I feel like we all kind of have the same collective consciousness of what the Kraken is.
And even after you've done the research?
Yeah. I was like, oh, so I was kind of right.
So we've all come back full circle to our starting point. Okay.
But this is more the history of the Kraken and what does the Kraken exist. So
I don't even totally understand what it is. So I feel like I'm going to learn something today.
All I knew going into this was his little mouth is working though.
That's the thing is I couldn't take him. Fuck, sorry. Hang on.
Okay. Look, he's trying to get all the attention from you he can until there's a whole ass baby in your mouth.
I think he probably knows. The other day, someone on Instagram, a lot of people on Instagram said oh my God, imagine if it's a Scorpio. It'll be the first Scorpio Em loves. And I'm like, has everyone forgotten about Giovanni?
And has everyone forgotten too that Gio and I fucking hated each other when we first met? Everyone's like, wow, so you made an exception for one Scorpio. I was like, I got broken down into that.
Yeah. That was psychological warfare on his part.
It was proximity effect, I think, because that dog could not have hated me more when we first met.
Wait, that's so cute. I mean, it's not cute, but it is cute now.
It'll be cute again, I guess, quote, if your baby is a Scorpio and it just fucking hates me for 3 years and then we're tight.
Oh, I see what's happening. Our new litter box is getting delivered. It's getting delivered. It was delivered a day late, so Gio probably has a feeling I'm buying presents for the cats.
Oh God,
not for him, but
again, he's feeling like he doesn't have attention. Just saying, the cats get a present.
Anyway, right. Sorry, that's why he's not in daycare, because of his teeth. I just wanted to clarify that.
I see.
He is home today. Work from home today.
Okay, so the Kraken. So my memory before I did this research, my thought of the Kraken was just I don't know why, but in my mind, green, sea monster. I always thought of Cthulhu, this little floaty alien tentacle guy.
Same.
And I still kind of feel that way.
Okay.
He is not as massive in size anymore as my original thoughts were, but that's the only thing that's really changed. And also I've seen people actually reach out and ask if I would one day cover Cthulhu. So one day, but that's not today.
Interesting.
Maybe this is his origin story. Are you one of the people who gets like the actual little balls in your tea?
Yeah, it's bubble tea. What do you think?
Ugh, I asked for
That's
it
what
without
bubble
that.
without
I
boba?
can't. Yeah, I literally get
What?
boba tea
What's the
minus the
point?
boba. Honestly, the point is it's tea after all the other tea places I go to have closed for the night.
You're not a bubble tea person?
No.
For my birthday last year, Eva got me a boba making kit. I love it. It's like my favorite activity. I didn't know that about you.
Yeah, well, it just feels like I'm just like chewing on Jello while drinking tea.
Exactly. That's the point.
Not my jam. All right. So the Kraken. So some stories of this sea monster go all the way back to AD 77, the year 77.
What?
By Pliny the Elder
Oh
from
yeah,
Rome.
Pliny. I learned this from Sawbones. Or Pliny, I think, but it's technically supposed to be Pliny.
Okay.
No, Pliny. Wait, shit. Clearly, I didn't learn it at all.
I was gonna say, didn't learn it well.
Well, I need to pay more attention. Clearly, I apologize.
That's
Either
okay.
Pliny or Pliny.
Big P. The Elder from Rome. So he wrote this work called "The Creature That Came from the Ocean," and basically said this is like the very first reference we can come up with of a sea monster in general. At least for this region, because there's the interesting thing about the Kraken is it's kind of this universally understood cryptid at this point, because people have been talking about it for hundreds and hundreds of years. And so there's like Scandinavian lore, there's German lore, there's Greek lore, there's Roman lore. So for Rome at least, the first text is in the year 77 by Big P. And he says that this monster used to be seen when it would show up near all the pickling near up all the pickling tubs where people would leave their fish to brine, and this monster would come up and eat the fish.
Okay, I get it. Has some sardines.
Yeah, he's just like me at the pickle barrel at the grocery store.
It's like me with pickled herrings and you running in the other direction.
Yeah, no, that's exactly it. And also especially the part me running away. So apparently one night when it went up to the pickling tubs, the dogs surrounded it and the people in town actually saw it up close for the first time. And this is a quote about its description. The size of the polypus was enormous beyond all conception, and then it was covered all over with dried brine and exhaled a most dreadful stench. At one instant, it would drive off the dogs by its horrible fumes and lash at them with its strong arms. And I paraphrased there at the end. It was really long, but basically it would lash out with its strong arms.
I can follow that.
It was apparently so massive and strong that it could barely be taken down by 3 spears at a time. And its head alone was as big as 15 amphorae, which apparently is jars of wine.
That's a lot of wine.
So, and apparently it also had a beard, which I'm confused by.
That's fun.
Just a big old Squidward with a beard.
Why not?
So later on, after it was slain, they ended up saying that its remains were 700 pounds.
Oh my.
Just to give you an idea of how big this guy is. So now we time travel away from year 77, and now we're in year 1180. And this is when, like, that was probably the most the earliest reference at all of the Kraken, but in 1180 is when we start really hearing about the Kraken, which by the way makes it like one of the longest known and longest the cryptid that has longest been researched on if it exists at all.
Okay.
So in 1180, it starts in Nordic folklore, and there's some references to sea monsters, but we really see it only a couple decades later. In the 13th century, there's this Icelandic story called the saga of Orvar Oder. And it's this character where him and his son have to face these two beasts at different points in the story. And the two monsters are called Hafgufa and Lingbacher. And Hafgufa is apparently translated to sea mist, and Lingbacher is translated to heatherback. Fun fact.
They sound like Pokemon, sea mist.
They do, right? And so in this story, the father and son have to fight off the Hafgufa and the Lingbacher, and both of them seem to have different traits of what we later think of as the Kraken. So I don't know if one was supposed to be the literal Kraken, or if just different characteristics of both of them ended up becoming part of the lore. So for example, the Lingbacher, he was so big that people could just like stand on him and just like apparently ride him if he wanted to.
Fun.
I don't think Lingbacher liked this, but
someone should have asked for consent. But
yeah. Well, apparently, one of the things that he does is if you were to get on his back, he then tries to like shake you off, or he'll go underwater to almost like suck you into the water.
Wow, how fun. Why would you ever get on that?
Well,
it's like a bull ride, like a rodeo bull.
It's like a bull ride plus an ocean vortex where you get sucked into this the forces of whirlpools.
Plus like an actual sea monster trying to murder you. Right. I forgot about that.
And but yeah, so and that ends up being a part of the lore of the Kraken. Over time it kind of evolves, but the big thing is the Kraken is so big that it sucks you down into the water.
Oh boy.
Also in Greek mythology, Odysseus had to sail past a six-headed beast called Scylla, or Scylla, maybe. I don't know how to pronounce it, but basically every region has their own version of a sea monster, and so all of them are kind of this weird mishmash of what becomes the Kraken.
I see.
So the word Kraken comes from Old Norse, the term at kraka, which apparently means to drag down, which is what this thing like it drags you into the water, and kraki has to do with like anchors on a boat or something. Also in German, krak is octopus, right?
Yeah, like Kraken, something like that.
Obviously, exactly like
that. Makes a lot of sense. I guess I never really thought about that as being actually related to the Kraken. Octopus in German. It's weirdly one of the words I didn't seem to learn before I turned 5.
Kraken without the N.
Yeah, der Krake.
Damn, you say it's so cool.
Octopus or Kraken. So take
there
your
you have
pick.
It. And a lot of theories, which I'll get into it later, but a hefty majority, or not a hefty majority, but a close runner-up to the hefty majority is that people think that this could actually just be an octopus.
Oh.
So that would make sense why they would name it that. So now the Kraken is kind of just up, starting in like the 1300s and still really until now, it's just this umbrella understanding of like this tentacled monster that is known to be violent in some way to people out at sea. And so by 1250, there's another Norwegian text that says it's called the Konungsskugsa. I literally have a friend that was raised in Norway and could just pronounce these things for me, and I didn't even ask. I don't know what's wrong with me.
Does she listen to the show? I hope not.
No, it's Reno.
I know.
She's doing her own.
I didn't know if we were
thing.
Throwing her name out there.
Oh no, but I've heard her speak the language. I'm like, oh my god, like I don't even know if I could pronounce a single word. So
no,
not even. I don't. It's probably for the best I didn't even ask. But anyway, so this Norwegian text, it says that there could have only been 2 Krakens to exist, or 2 sea monsters that would have existed, because they were so massive that, first of all, apparently they couldn't reproduce, but even if they could, they were so massive that there was not enough like food in their general vicinity that they would have been able to survive and grow.
Oh my, that's unfortunate.
But then that makes me think, like, how did the first ones get there?
That's a very good question.
Although the Kraken is now finally gaining recognition. One of his downfalls is he was not included in this one book from the late 1500s called the Historiae Animalium, which was basically this encyclopedia, which I don't know if it exists anymore, but I fucking need a copy of it. It's an encyclopedia that talked about all known creatures, whether or not they actually were real.
I think I've heard about this.
We must have talked about it on
I
a
think you've
different, maybe
talked
there's
about
like,
it.
maybe like Nessie or someone was mentioned in there.
Or maybe
But,
what's it called? Oh shit, what's it called? What's it the German one? Tatzelworm.
Oh, maybe. I think
I
that's
feel like
I think you're right.
maybe around that time you talked about it. I'm not positive, but
Well, look, you've got the maternal instincts kicking in, so I'm just gonna
about the Tatzelworm.
You were able to smell Gio's breath and think of the Tatzelworm on the spot. So
Oh,
maybe
no.
you're onto something. But yeah, so anyway, so it's this text that like it's all known animals, including those that have just been discovered and we don't know too much about them, or rumored like mythical creatures.
That's very cool.
So you would think the Kraken, who at this point, it's the 1500s, it's already been mentioned on and off for the last 400 years, didn't even get put in the book. And unicorns got put in the book.
Oh,
so, which by the way were described as wild asses. So,
ouch!
Which I think is
that's
hysterical.
rude.
They are kind of wild. In terms of like my brain breaking when I think about them maybe existing. Also, realistically, the reason the Kraken wasn't included in some of the volumes is because I guess in some of the volumes they didn't list maritime animals, like nautical animals.
Oh.
And then other people say, no, the Kraken always was mentioned in it. He just didn't go by that name. He was generally listed under sea serpent. So,
Man, if you look at is roaring, I see. Okay.
It says the 1500s. We can't solve it.
Oh my god.
But anyway, like in theory, if you're just looking up sea serpents and he does fall into that category, then yes, he got mentioned, but not a standalone post.
Got it.
So in 1555, there's this guy named Olaus Magnus who wrote about this monster that had, quote, sharp and long horns round about like a tree root up by the roots. Okay.
Whoa.
That was the next cameo we get of a sea monster. And then in the 1700s, at this point, the Kraken is a household name in a lot of places, especially Norway, since that's kind of where most of the original lore started.
Right.
But now the stories are starting to kind of twist into the fact that the Kraken will eat a whole like ship of people, and then it's becoming this like sailor lore of like when you're out at sea, the Kraken's gonna get you.
It's just like a casual upgrade that suddenly he's eating entire boats. Like,
yeah,
he was a little scary and some dogs ran away, and now suddenly he's swallowing ships whole.
He was just eating some briny fish by the seashore, and now all of a sudden
well, and to be fair, they did say he didn't have enough food, so what do you expect?
He's looking wherever he can get it.
Hungry.
But I guess now he's mad because he wasn't mentioned in the Historiae.
I would be mad too, my friend.
So he's like, time to square up.
I'm hungry and I wasn't in that book, so watch out, world.
I'm coming for you. Kraken is making his name. So in the by the 1700s, people are kind of shaping the story into the Kraken is a threat. Fun fact before we keep going, I wanted to say that my favorite Kraken fact is, I forgot this earlier and I just don't want to miss the opportunity. Near the North Sea, they found resin-like fossils that are allegedly Kraken poop. And I thought that was very fun. I don't know how on earth they got to that place. I definitely did not do a deep dive where I should have, but I saw that and I was like, well, it's going in the
That's
notes.
like for sure you and I as any sort of scientist. Like, I bet I know what this is. Write it down.
Exactly. It's like, oh, it's poop. It's obviously Bigfoot's poop.
It's obviously not a normal animal. It's a unicorn. It's a wild ass.
It's Mothman sweat or something.
Ooh.
Ooh,
oh la la.
Say less. So okay, so yeah, so this is when he's getting big, and around this time the Kraken has also made his presence or his notoriety known in other countries.
Okay.
And the general threat that he does is that either he takes his big tentacle arms,
right,
and he either swats or pushes down on the ship and capsizes the ship, and then you end up in the water.
Uh-oh.
Or he's like Shamu and like eats the entire ship, including you at once.
Open wide.
Yeah.
Okay.
What was the whale's name in Pinocchio? Started with an M.
Oh, I don't.
Monstro.
Dick. Oh. Pinocchio scared me, so I only watched half of it and then never saw it again.
I had to turn it off when he turned into a wild ass, a literal donkey. Remember?
No, I'm telling you, I didn't watch it. It scared me.
Literally turns the cartoon one when he starts turning into a donkey.
Oh, I thought you meant a unicorn. Yeah, I do remember the donkey part.
I mean, a literal wild ass, not a fancy unicorn.
I see.
No, because like he was like on the land.
Was frightening.
He was on an island of bad boys or something, and bad boys turn into asses.
I think
really was freaky. Like the adult message that I took from it. But yeah, I remember watching him transform, and I was just so beyond petrified. I had to turn
horrifying. It off. I do remember that actually. Ugh.
How did we get on donkeys?
You said
Monstro,
more Moby Dick, Monstro, yeah.
So it basically just kind of like takes the entire ship down, and you go down with it. But the main thing is that either its arms will, like, it's lying underneath your ship, and then its arms will kind of just grab up and pull you down, or that people often think, like the original 13th century lore, it's so big that they think it's an island, or maybe they can like dock their boat on it or something. And so then it will pull down really fast and create this vortex in the water, and basically you get whirlpooled in and you just disappear forever.
Cool.
One of the two. So in 1735, Kraken has apparently, stepped it up with his with the word on the street of how scary he is. And so now, even though he wasn't mentioned in that first text, he's now mentioned by Linnaeus, who is the father of taxonomy, and he put Kraken into the very first edition of the Systema Naturae, which was like the taxonomical breakdown of all organisms. So I think it was like the kingdom, phylum, class, the genus, species thing that we all learned in like 8th grade. So I think the Kraken got his own scientific name. Yes. Okay. So according to this taxonomy breakdown that he got put into, he is technically a cephalopod, which is a cuttlefish, octopus, squid kind of situation.
Sure.
And his scientific name is Microcosmus marinus, which means the microcosm of the marine.
Ooh, his manager really stepped it up. He was like, I gotta get in this fucking book and I gotta make it big.
He got himself a PR team there to give himself like a name like that. The microcosm. Yeah. That's a superhero name to me.
That's pretty baller.
Or the super villain. So fun fact, since he's now listed technically as a cephalopod, a fun fact is that the cuttlefish is actually classified under the same genus as the Kraken. So in some cases, the Kraken is technically a cuttlefish.
So what exactly is a cuttlefish? Because it always sounds like really cuddly, and I feel like it's probably not.
I also always thought it was a cuddly fish, but it's actually T's, not D's. Cuttlefish.
That makes it sound a lot scarier. Cuttlefish, like cuttle.
Went from cuddling to cutting. Yeah.
To cutting me. Yeah, I'm looking at it. It's something I'd rather not cuddle with. No offense.
I see.
It does.
No offense if you're in the room with me. If you're listeing to our podcast,
no
cuttlefish.
Cephalopods all over the nation.
Please don't slide into our DMs. We don't want it. Okay, so fun fact, technically a cuttlefish. But that's interesting to me because the cuttlefish of the three, squid, octopus, and cuttlefish, is like the least likely. Like the main theories are squid and octopus, not cuttlefish, even though based on original taxonomy it was more cuttlefish than
although a cuttlefish looks like Cthulhu, like with the creepy mouth. Have you looked at one?
No, I
look at it. It like has these weird mouth tentacles.
So that I think is called its beak.
Ew.
Because I know that makes it, again, like every time you think something cute is happening, it's like the worst.
I knew octopi have beaks. I knew that.
So its beak ends up being part of the research that people use later. There's actually one person, I forget his name now, but back in like 2011, I didn't keep this in my notes. Back in 2011, a researcher or a paleontologist actually found what he thinks is a prehistoric squid beak that was like crazy bigger than normal size, to imply that they used to be like dinosaur-sized squid, which could be the Kraken. So,
which is my nightmare, and also the Kraken, but mostly my nightmare.
So, although the Kraken made it into this first edition, Linnaeus, I think that's his name, or Linnaeus, he ended up regretting adding the cryptid to his data and then took him out of future editions.
That's not gonna make him happy.
Flew too close to the sun right there. He was only in the spotlight for a short
Too
time.
big.
But in 1752, the Kraken is mentioned again in a new book called The Natural History of Norway. And the author was Bishop Eric Pontoppidan, who he says that the Kraken has a circumference of 2.5 kilometers.
What?
Yikes.
Holy crap.
It's a big boy. And he also says that the Kraken is so big that people mistake him for a mountain or land. And so people don't really, one of the reasons why he's such a well hidden cryptid is because he's hiding in plain sight, because you could literally be standing on him and you wouldn't know, because a lot of people think he's an island or a mountain or something, because he could just be like, half of him could be sitting up above the water and you think you're just like hanging out on a rock in the water, and it's actually the Kraken.
It's his booty.
It's his tushy.
You're sitting on his
tush. This book also says that he is so big, just to give you a frame of reference, quote, an entire regiment of soldiers could practice their battle maneuvers on his back.
I hope they don't, because it's probably his tushy.
I hope they don't. That's part of the warfare there. That's part of the training, actually, is you have to get away from the Kraken.
Warfare that convinced you to like Geo, to a lot of the same.
Yeah.
A lot of the same.
All the same. It felt like I was, fighting for my life.
A battle on a Kraken. Sorry, I don't know where my brain is kind of fried right now. I apologize.
We missed the chance earlier, but I'm going to go back to when we were saying that people were sitting on his tushy. You were sitting on the Kraken's crack.
Damn it. I'm so glad you came up with that, because people would have tweeted it.
It was delayed, but the Kraken's crack is absolutely something I needed to shout out anyway.
Crack of the Kraken. So, I mean, has a nice ring to it.
Yeah. I'm sorry.
No.
So I think so. So the book also tells the story of a man that had accidentally ended up on the back of the Kraken, the crack of the Kraken,
the backside of the Kraken.
And his name, or he was the Bishop of Nidaros, and the bishop thought that the Kraken was an island when really the Kraken was sleeping, and so he was hanging out on the Kraken, I guess, and he went there for a mass with his church. And apparently in this story, the Kraken was polite enough and respectful enough to wait for the mass to end and for everybody to leave before he went off on his merry way.
No. Well,
so
that's
apparently
nice.
He's religious or respectful of religion.
Wow, how open-minded.
How open-minded of him. So this same author also described the Kraken as, quote, round, flat, and full of arms or branches, and the largest and most surprising of all the animal creation.
Oh, okay.
So he's stepping it up in the books again.
Yeah.
So also around this time, the Kraken was such a popular monster that he was also now included in the UK's first modern scientific survey of the natural world. Fun fact. And then 30 years later, in the 1780s, Jacob Wallenberg wrote about the Kraken in his own story, where he says, quote, the Kraken stays at the sea floor, constantly surrounded by innumerable small fishes who serve as his food and are fed by him in return. For his meal lasts no longer than 3 months, and after 3, and another 3 then are needed to digest it. So every 6 months, the Kraken feeds, basically.
Oh, okay.
And apparently there's some weird situation with his throat where he does this belching motion that it serves a few purposes. And one is that when he belches, or it stretches his throat enough to catch all of these fish, but then something else happens where the grub that he breathes out afterwards feeds the rest of the fish nearby. That was kind of the understanding I had.
Okay.
So he lures in fish in this way. And so but one of the other ways that apparently the Kraken is rumored to get his food, by Wired.com no less, The Kraken has, quote, a strong and peculiar scent which can emit at certain times and by means of which it draws other fish to many old fishermen. Its evacuation, poop, it colors the surface of the water, which appears quite thick and turbid.
Ew.
Basically, he shits all over the ocean. And then it's so thick and colorful, it lures the fish in.
Why? It was a bad taste fish.
Quote, this muddiness, goodbye.
Oh my God.
Is said to be so agreeable to the smell or taste of other fishes that they gather together from all parts and for that purpose directly over the Kraken. So basically they're going fucking crazy. It's like catnip for them, but it's poop. And they find the Kraken, and then he, quote, opens his arms or horns. Apparently he's got fucking horns too. And he seizes and swallows his welcome guests and converts them after due time by digestion into bait for other fish of the same kind. So that is the two ways.
Pooping them out and then drawing them back in.
Eating and pooping. Yep. So that's the two ways, either the belching thing, maybe it's a combination where he does the poop thing and brings them in, and then with the belching thing, he stretches around them and eats them. But those are the ways that we think the Kraken probably catches its food. And because it takes them like 3 months to digest, you don't have to worry about it after the Kraken has eaten recently. But
how do we know?
How we know, I'm going to guess an answer for you, because it kind of goes with the next point I was going to say, which is that because the Kraken draws in all these fish, a lot of fishermen want to find the Kraken or want to find this huge source of fish. And so I would imagine wherever the fish are the most popular is where that's how you know that the Kraken's about to eat. Maybe if the water looks really fucking gnarly because he's pooping everywhere. But so the point I was going to make, though, is since the fishermen are always trying to follow the fish and the fish are always following the Kraken, it really perfectly sets up this continual lore of like the Kraken could always be nearby because you're literally trying to find the source of the Kraken.
It's like danger zone when you're fishing out there.
Exactly. So the Kraken is also said, violent belch. I already did that. Okay.
No, we can go over it again.
We could talk. Geo also has a violent belch, especially now with this little stinky breath.
He certainly does. I'm not going to deny that.
I love Geo burps though. Not the smell, but the sound. They're very interesting.
He just kind of goes like, and he does it in your face. Like he'll crawl up to you, like, and you think he's trying to like cuddle with you, and he won't even open his mouth. He'll just go like, directly in your face. It's very rude.
Okay, so the lore also seems to imply, I have said this earlier, that the Kraken likes to take down ships with its arms or make whirlpools. And so as of like the 1800s, that is the firm understanding of how the Kraken will get you. It's either the arms, like in like those, like, not that there are many to date, but in my mind, there have been at least one or two childhood sea movies where there's some horrible, massive creature in the sea. And it's almost like tentacle latches on from one side of the ship, tentacle latches on from the other side of the ship. And so that and the whirlpool vortex thing are just understood by the 1800s. That's how it will get you.
Got it.
And in 1848, the ship called the Daedalus, it says that it saw this creature firsthand, and the sailors say that the creature was 60 feet long. Which to me, though, 60 feet long is still not. Oh, by the way, for reference, I looked up a school bus, which apparently school buses are 45 feet long, just to give you a reference.
Oh, okay. Well, that doesn't seem as big as like.
I thought this thing was like Godzilla of the sea.
Well, they said like, 2.5 kilometers. Like.
I know. But in my head, I just kind of always ignored any numbers that came my way about it. And I was just like, this thing is a fucking Goodyear blimp.
No, but what I'm saying is 2.5 kilometers is like half a 5K. Like that's fucking massive. Not the size of a school bus.
Apparently, so different stories say different things, but apparently the farther back in time you go, the bigger it is. So I think that's why I always thought that it was massive, because whenever I think of like a horror story at sea, it's always kind of old timey in my head anyway. But to like apparently as time goes on and we have more and more modern science, the Kraken has gotten smaller and smaller.
Okay. Because like how many feet did you say? 60 feet?
60 feet.
Okay, I just looked up 2.5 kilometers. That's 8,202 feet. So like
Yeah.
that is
I
quite
think
a difference.
Also if you think about, because this is like just a random ignorant opinion, but I would imagine at a time when people were writing stories like the Odyssey and shit, like when like I don't know if it was more believable or not, but I feel like it was just kind of expected that monsters were this crazy, outlandish, godlike, you know, otherworldly beings. And so I feel like since the story was kind of getting thrown all over the region with those kind of mindsets, then maybe they were bigger and scarier. I don't really know. But basically, as we've been trying to prove it more and more, and science has been like, there's nothing that big, the story the size begins to diminish.
It becomes more of an octopus and less of a kraken.
Yeah. So back in, you know, Greek mythology times or 77 AD, this thing was like the biggest thing on Earth.
Right.
But now we've gotten all the way to the 1850s and it's only 60 feet.
I see. Okay.
Probably just because as time goes on, it needs to become more and more realistic to believe. I'm not sure. But so anyway, so the ship dealt with the sea creature and the sailors said it was about 60 feet. But apparently Sir Richard Owen, I don't know if he was on the ship and was one of the sailors or if he just like came in and mansplained the situation without being there. He, in fact, was the person who invented the word dinosaur.
Sorry, what? Really?
Sir Richard Owen was the man who invented the word dinosaur.
I mean, good for him to not say Owensaur, because I would like for sure name it after myself. Because Schiefersaur, I feel like it's a good ring to it.
That's such a good point. Like, damn, if I created something as badass as the word dinosaur,
right?
My name would absolutely be in there.
I would regret that for the rest of my life. Like, shit, if I knew this term would become so big, I would have put my name in there.
He's probably thinking the same thing. So, Sir Richard Owen, he created the word Owensaur, really. That's what he told his friends at the bar, at least.
Yeah, and, poor Owen.
But so he said, like, oh, this story about the sailor seeing this 60-foot monster, it was not a 60-foot monster. It was probably a seal. And then the captain was like, fuck you. We know what a seal looks like. Like, this wasn't a seal.
Seriously.
But apparently it terrified the entire ship, and they like swore up and down this Kraken-like creature was in the water. And up until now, because the size is slowly getting smaller and smaller, but we haven't really covered the actual definition of what this thing looks like beyond the fact that it has tentacles.
Right, true.
So up until now, so from 77 AD or maybe more or less like the 13th century, all the way up until the mid 1800s, this thing has been described as everything under the sun. So the Kraken was very crab-like to some people. It was like this massive crab. Some people said it was a massive lobster. I think they were just going with whatever animal they knew that existed in the ocean.
Yeah.
And there were a lot of stories that just called it this misshapen mass, quote. And so I think over time it just kind of morphed into just general sea serpent, especially probably because it was mentioned as a sea serpent in that book forever ago.
Yeah.
So everyone had a different opinion, but only until the 1850s did people settle on what this thing looked like, which by the way explains why all over the goddamn world for years and years and years, everyone had an encounter with this thing, because they were just having encounters with sea creatures, and it could have been anything of any size. Could have been a fucking lobster. And you're like, man, this Kraken really had me. So only up until this point was it super massive, super powerful, and could have looked like anything. But now by the 1850s, only now is when we're officially deciding that this creature is a squid-like creature.
I see.
So happens in 1857. There's a plot twist because all of a sudden this random cephalopod creature was found on a beach. And after studying its beak, this became the first documented giant squid.
Okay. And
maybe because it was the most mysterious thing to come out of the ocean yet, they were like, this thing's the fucking guy we've been talking about. But they were like, Kraken? Yes? Okay, so that's what this is. We're just going to call it the Kraken. So, and it was this giant squid in the 1857. And it ended up being classified as, its scientific name was Architeuthis dux. And
sounds like a drunk person invented that.
It does not sound real. But also, this is another step up for the Kraken because now he's officially written back into science.
He's back, baby.
After
Come back.
everything, he's been written in a bunch of stories. He's been written in a bunch of texts as a mythical creature. But now because a creature that we're calling the Kraken or calling a Kraken-like animal has been written into science, he has now planted himself rudely into like, I exist. But since we're talking about giant squid, I wanted to ask you, do you know the difference between a squid and an octopus?
Oh no.
I've always heard that Squidward is actually an octopus, not a squid.
Well, octopi have 8 tentacles, I guess, right?
But so do squid, apparently.
Oh shit. Okay. Octopi.
I have the answer. Don't worry.
One of them have ink.
Squid have ink. Squids have ink.
Well,
maybe I don't know if octopi have ink. I thought that was just a squid thing.
I don't know, Em.
So squids are bullet shaped with fins because and the reason for this is because they actually swim more.
Okay.
And they have 8 legs and they have 2 tentacles. So the difference is if they have 8 legs and 2 tentacles.
Okay.
And if you ever look at Squidward, he has 6 legs that he walks on and 2 arms. So technically he has a full 8 legs and no tentacles, and therefore he is technically an octopus.
Okay.
But so if you like, he's bullet shaped with fins. And they also have apparently, I don't know if this is real, this doesn't feel right, but apparently they only have tentacles on the tips, like, or suction cups on the tips of their tentacles versus octopi have it on their
whole. Because if you eat calamari,
which I don't.
Oh, well, then never mind. But a lot of it is just, it's not like tentacled, but octopus usually is.
Well, there you have it. And so again, they have this the bullet shape in the fins. It's because they swim more versus octopi who live on the sea floor.
Oh.
And so they don't need the extra tentacles or fins to swim around. They don't need the bullet shape to be more to move faster through the water.
To show off, like squid.
They're here for a long time, not a good time.
I would agree with that.
And so they, instead of having a bullet shaped body, they have a circular body, and they are have that creepy thing where they can change into like literally any shape to get through the smallest hole.
Oh, octopi are creepy and they're so smart. Like,
yeah, they're
I don't
so
eat
smart.
Calamari or squid anymore because apparently they're like extremely intelligent animals, and I feel bad about it.
They are both known to be super smart. But yeah, so the reason that they have that ability where they like basically shapeshift is because since they live on the sea floor, they need to be able to hide under rocks and stuff down there, and so they can pretty much morph into anything.
It's so creepy.
So based on those descriptions in a Sailor's story, based on however they describe it to you, you can determine for yourself if the Kraken is more squid or octopus. But more often than not, especially because now it has been listed scientifically as a giant squid, people think of it as a giant squid.
Okay.
So Scientific American says that the giant squid, the largest one on record is 18 meters, which apparently is around 60 feet.
Mm-hmm.
So not Kraken territory, but we can dream. And Wired.com says that there is an even bigger squid, quote, that makes the giant squid look downright cuddly, but not a cuttlefish.
Not quite cuddly as a cuttlefish.
Quote, stalking the waters of Antarctica is the colossal squid.
No, thanks.
Which, while measuring about the same length as the giant squid, aka it's still only up to 60 feet, it has a more robust mantle. And also it has, instead of on its suction cup tentacles, it also has hooks.
Ew.
So, quote, the colossal squid is the only reason that we can assume that the Kraken is more likely a giant squid versus a colossal squid, even though the colossal squid is in theory thicker and larger. The colossal squid is super fucking lazy. So like
I wasn't expecting that.
So like it doesn't give a shit. Like if there was a ship full of sailors, the colossal squid is not going to be the one that gets you.
Oh, you can hang out on his booty all day.
You could just hang out on that tushy. Apparently, he is literally, it's estimated that the colossal squid, quote, uses up to 600 times less energy than similar sized creatures.
That's incredible.
That sounds like me.
Yeah, it does. It sounds like, I mean, not just you, but yeah, us as a team. I don't mean to throw you under the bus, but
No,
wow.
I admit, I surely have 600% less energy than my roommate Ralph James.
Well,
over
I
there.
think all of us have 600% at least less than him. The Olympian, yeah.
Whenever we've played our big quarantine outing, the only time we've left the house is to go play disc golf because literally nobody, you're the only people on the field. And we have kind of this like more or less abandoned disc golf course near our apartment. And
Oh,
so there's only ever like 3 cars there. It's like never happening. Like it's so
you're just
like
frothing by yourselves.
just frothing. And so that's what we've been doing to get outside and away from people. And we brought RJ one time. That man was off the goddamn walls with his energy. He was
Well,
like literally like a 12-year-old. He was like running up to a tree and then jumping to like kick off of it and stuff. And I was like, what is your deal? Like, I was like,
get back in the car.
Like, why do you think I invited you to play a sport? Because it requires 0 energy.
He's like a golden retriever, just fucking like running and running and running.
He had the zoomies.
Zoomies. Oh,
so
Ralph James.
Anyway, in the world of animals, I am the colossal squid because and like the giant squid, it sits for its prey instead of runs anyone down. But in terms of energy, the giant squid would be the one that would attack. And the giant squid apparently is known to be violent. So that's what people think
the giant squid then.
No. So people think that's probably more likely to be the Kraken.
Okay.
So in 1861, the first reliably documented encounter of ship versus monster happened, where there was this warship called the Alecton, and it saw an actual giant squid and shot at it. And again, I don't know why they shot at it. It seems like you could just drive past it in the ocean. And one sailor actually did hit the squid, and then they tried to drag it on board and all this. But this was the first interaction that we can truly, fully document that a giant squid and sailors interacted.
Okay.
But nothing happened to the sailors. So there's that.
Nothing happened to the squid?
I mean, the squid died, but that was it.
See, that's what I hate. It's like, oh, these evil squids are like attacking humans. It's like you're literally just rolling up in its territory, shooting it and dragging it onto your... What do you mean? Like, you're the violent one.
Hold on to that for 2 more bullets.
Oh, no.
So, no, you're right. Just hang in there for 2 more bullets, and then I'll let you get all fired up. So 8 years after this encounter, this is when Jules Verne's 20,000 Leagues Under the Sea book came out. Which, fun fact, in Back to the Future worlds, this is Dr. Emmett Brown's favorite book. We know it well.
Yes.
But when this book was translated into English, this is when areas near us, when our region started to see more sea monster lore. So thank you, Jules Verne. Truly, to me, I know I mentioned this earlier, but what I think really solidified like the Kraken as we know it is H.P. Lovecraft's Cthulhu, which came out in the 1920s. So not for another 50 years since Jules Verne's 20,000 Leagues. I think the English translation came out in the 80s, the 1880s, and then Cthulhu came out in I think 1928. Okay. So that was a nice 40 years to translate that into English and really develop the sea monster lore, and then Cthulhu came out. So I think those things combined are really what got...
Yeah, that makes sense.
At least in how it got translated to me, I think it started with those 2 works.
Because I've heard, I mean, I think most of us have at least heard of those.
Yeah.
Both of those. And
for those of you who don't know, a giant squid was part of the 20,000 Leagues.
What if it wasn't? What if it just had absolutely nothing to do?
People were probably like, why on earth did you fucking mention that?
Charles Dickens' A Tale of Two Cities. It's nothing to
do. Othello. So anyway.
Othello. It sounds like Cthulhu got misspelled.
Othello and Cthulhu. Can someone recreate Othello and Cthulhu together?
That sounds like a big ask, but if you can do it, go for it.
A cosmic sea monster, but also a Shakespearean drama.
Oh, how cute is that? A little octopus. Did you ever watch that show Oswald the Octopus?
I'm sorry. Are you talking like I don't fucking know Oswald
Okay, well,
and his dachshund weenie?
okay, because I watched a lot of kids shows for way too long, and I
I did too.
recognize that. Okay, good. Because
The
some people are
penguin was
like,
such an asshole.
I know that he was a dick.
I want 2 marshmallows in my hot chocolate. No more, no less.
I'm so happy you know about Oswald, because sometimes I say these things and people are like, that was a rare Canadian show that literally nobody saw except you and your German family. So sometimes I don't
No.
know what's like normal, but I loved Oswald.
I remember at like I would like to say as a child, but maybe like closer to being like a tween. I remember watching Oswald and being like, I don't know much about the world yet, but that penguin's a fucking dick. I
He
remember
was a dick, and my favorite
they were
animals were
best
penguins.
friends.
Yeah, and I was like, my favorite animals were penguins. So I was like, you are giving penguins a bad fucking name.
You know
sir.
what? I think and I say this about Oswald, but I mean a lot of the like Nick Jr. or like Disney Kids shows from that time. I think they really relieved anxiety because if you think about Oswald, there was no real like it was like really slow background music. Oswald was literally fucking doing nothing in every episode.
Oh yeah.
Like all
He was
had
like
to do was like
strolling. He was like just like
he was
scrolling.
walking so goddamn slow. And I think like the biggest plot point that ever happened in one of those episodes was he like returned a jacket. It was so calming.
He was like too polite. Yeah.
He really would. If he got bumped into, he would just spend 10 minutes apologizing. And I think that's where I learned my anxiety, where like all of a sudden I live in a world of hustle and bustle. I'm not in Oswald's town.
Wait, I just looked up do you know who voices Oswald?
Fred Savage.
I had no idea.
I actually didn't know, but in my memory, I just heard Oswald's voice and I went,
Oh, that's
fucker.
hysterical. I can like totally see it, but I never would have like thought of that.
It was just such a calming show.
I love Oswald. Wow, with his little hat. Oh my god. I feel
anyway,
better already.
You know what? He's actually the liberal grandchild of his grandpa, the Kraken. So
he's made great strides.
He is. He went to therapy. He did work on himself.
He worked on himself. Yeah, for sure. He cut out a lot of toxic folks in his life. I mean,
that's why all he's got one bad apple left in his circle. I meant the penguin, but he's got Weenie, his emotional support animal.
That's right.
And he's got that one last toxic friend he's trying to like learn boundaries with, but it's okay. He's there. Okay. He's on it. Everyone else is like, okay, my God, please.
Everyone's like, literally, what are you talking? What if this is only you and I ever watched this show?
Okay, but the last thing I'm going to say is for those of you who don't believe me on this anxiety theory I have, just if you have anxiety today, go listen to the Oswald theme song and you won't have anxiety by the end.
I'm literally have a like Google image search. I just typed in Oswald the Octopus and I've like felt my blood pressure just dropping like fully.
I think there was a reason why, even though I was quote older, like too old to watch it, I think I watched it because I was all of a sudden like 13 and hormonal and dealing with algebra. And I was like, I need Oswald. We had
enough conflict in our lives. We didn't want to watch more of it on TV. Jeez.
I was desperately in the closet. I needed an octopus to hold on to, you know, like
8 tentacles to just grab on tight.
Okay.
Okay.
Wow. Back to this. Okay. So in 1874, this is the point where you're allowed to get all fired up. I know we just got you calmed
I just
down.
calmed myself down.
But in 1874, this was 13 years after the first documented account where sailors shot at a giant squid. 13 years later, there's another giant squid encounter with a ship. And this guy actually fucking takes down the whole ship. This is the first time some actual Kraken stuff is going on that we can document. I say that loosely. But the story that goes crazy in the 1870s is that this squid literally dragged down a 150-ton schooner.
Oh, no.
But apparently the story that I read from it was that like the captain or the sailors were like shooting at it and eventually someone shot it and it got mad and then it like took it down. Yeah.
Oh.
So I said loosely that happened because there is no actual document of it on like a ship registrar or in maritime museums, but this story went more or less viral for the 1870s.
I just hate that because it's like, oh, it's vicious. It attacked me. It's like you're literally shooting it with what on earth do you expect?
I know. Also, this story apparently got so much talk through the grapevine that Popular Science had to do a review about the Kraken to try to like break down if it really exists or not. And And so probably in response to this story, Popular Science Review said that the Kraken is, quote, a stupendous production of human imagination. So
stupendous indeed.
that's where they stand on this. So
everyone's like, we didn't ask you, Popular Science. Sit down. Nobody asked you.
So maybe this ended up just kind of being like sensationalized or, not totally legitimate journalism. But here is the article that people read. This is from the Sunday Times, May 10th. Holy shit, it's May 6th. I thought it was going to be May 10th. That would have been so cool. Wait, does this come out on May 10th?
No, it comes out in 2 weeks.
Fuck, I can't get it together. Okay, whatever. This is from 1874. It says, a ship capsized and then sank. The crew of the, and I'm paraphrasing because it was very flowery and I'm just trying to get to the point. A ship capsized and then sank, and the crew of the small boat got into the water, but they were picked up by the crew of another ship that was apparently witnessing this entire experience. Can you imagine being that sailor being like, yo, that sucks? Like,
oh shit, don't look now.
It'll end up on like Barstool USA or whatever.
Somebody's like zooming in with their old like Nokia, like trying to get a video.
I like how in 1874, Nokia was still considered old. Okay, so they were picked up by the crew of another ship, the Strathoan. They claimed they themselves shot at a giant squid floating in silence, which means it was at peace. Which made the squid furious and climb onto the ship. And 2 sailors died in the squid's arms, and a third disappeared. The squid body was said to be at least as thick as the smaller ship.
I mean, so stupid, but also died in the squid's arms sounds so peaceful.
It sounds like that's Cthulhu and Othello right there.
Yeah. Okay.
Thank God. Written by Oswald because he knows what love is. I get it.
Calming presence.
So anyway, this is at least the first documentation, whether or not it's legitimate, but it was the first like written in and seen as fact where sailors are dying because of this creature.
Sure.
So by the 1930s, there are at least 3 other stories of squids attacking ships and sailors either being lost at sea afterwards or dying or whatever it is. So it's now by the 1930s, pretty much written in fact that the Kraken is out to get you if you're out at sea and you never know where he might be. In 2003, just to time travel, the Sydney Morning Herald, this is a quote from one of their stories about the Kraken or a sea monster in general. Veteran yachtsman Oliver D. Kersausen said that his boat was hit by strange vibrations, so he sent a crew member below deck to try to identify what was wrong. Suddenly, he saw something moving, and it was tentacles. The squid was pulling really hard, so we put the boat... Oh, this is he's now saying this is actually Oliver himself talking in the excerpt now. Suddenly, he saw something moving, and it was tentacles, and the squid was pulling really hard, so we put the boat... we put the boat about, and when we came to stop, the tentacles let go. We saw it behind the boat, and it was enormous. I've been sailing for 40 years, and I have never seen the like of this. And then one crew member, this is still a quote of the news article, one crew member who spotted the creature through a porthole said that the tentacles were as thick as my arm wearing an oil skin, and I immediately thought of the damage it could do. When we saw it behind the boat, it must have been 7 to 9 meters long. So speaking of creepy stories of squids, I just want to take this moment because we talked about it earlier, because you mentioned a little bit how you knew that they can like fit through all these tiny little spaces super quickly.
Yeah.
There was this super popular video that went around a while ago that most people probably saw and don't realize you did, but it was like this octopus trying to get off of one side of a boat and onto the other side so he could drop into the water.
Oh no, I haven't seen that. I've seen one where they like tested it at an aquarium, but I've never seen one.
No, octopus gets through, I don't know, hole of boat. I don't know. It's probably going to be the first video that comes up. Yep, first video that comes up. It's, in case you want to look it up, it's called Huge Octopus Escapes Through Smallest Hole.
It's so freaky. I don't really want to look it up. I'm a little scared.
Here, I'll send it to you. I'll send you the link.
Okay.
Where are you in my... Oh, here. Apparently been texting people that aren't you recently.
Buried way under all your contacts. Am I supposed to watch this now?
Sure, yeah. It's only... Oh, sorry. That was my ads, if you heard anything. I'm also going to watch it for fun while you watch it.
Okay. It's from the dodo.
Yeah. So the whole video, by the end, it's completely on the other side of the boat.
Oh my God.
I mean, that thing is beyond creepy. And doesn't it look like a little kraken?
This is terrifying. Look how
Isn't it
big he
awful?
is.
I know.
So,
Ugh. So, I mean,
basically-
this is just for our entertainment. We don't have to keep this whole part in, but like, I mean, yeah, and apparently they also change color.
so this is from the dodo, and it says a 600-pound octopus can fit through a hole the size of a quarter.
Yep.
That's
a whole ass
nuts.
octopus.
600.
And this thing looks like it could, I mean, I don't know how big this one is, but it's definitely bigger than a fucking quarter.
No, slightly. Also, he said it's changing colors too, which look at it, it's turning blue. It's
Yeah.
turning like different colors. Also, he said it can fit through anything that its beak can fit through. So that's interesting. That's probably a
Whoa.
little beak.
Yeah, that's probably like the hardest part on it.
I'm just gonna also read
Ugh.
the top comment. I need someone who believes in me the same way this dude believes in that octopus. He's like cheering him on the whole time.
Ugh, gross. And
Listen,
then it
nature's
said,
incredible.
look at that.
Oh, but it's
And
so
that,
cool. Like, what? Think that
Huh.
that evolved over all that time,
I know.
and then we eat it and shoot it. Humans suck.
Humans suck. That should be the title of this episode. So anyway, so that's one of the more viral things that have come out recently of octopi or squids, just because it was such a wild video. And then
Yeah.
also there is this famous little creature named Inky in New Zealand who escaped from an aquarium and went down a drain in 2016.
That's the one I remember.
That's some Finding Nemo shit right there.
That
He made
it
a
because
plan.
even the name Inky sounds like an
Yeah.
Finding Nemo character.
So anyway, so really quick before we go, I just want to say there's one theory that the Kraken isn't a giant squid, but is a colossal octopus instead of a colossal squid, which better fits the description of how people describe what the Kraken looks like. But like I said earlier, it's still probably the giant squid because it's more violent. There is another one that's even more violent called the Humboldt squid, but it's much smaller, so it's probably not the Kraken. Although, fun fact, Humboldt squids are called red devils because they turn red when they're about to attack you.
Oh, okay.
And then the giant squid, which is most likely has become the lore that is the Kraken. The giant squid is usually 13 to 15 meters, which is about 43 to 50 feet. And some say it can reach up to 18 meters, which is about 60 feet. But that's only when it's like stretched out on land. So that probably doesn't count.
Sure.
And the giant squid is still like this huge enigma. We don't know anything about its social patterns, its eating patterns, its mating patterns.
You're gonna
Fun
say
fact.
social life. I was like, well, it's none of our business, to be quite frank.
You know what? He feels like an introvert to me, though, so I feel like I can guess his social pattern.
Yeah, I get it, dude.
But one thing we do know, speaking of mating behaviors, we do know that the male giant squid, his penis is up to 1 meter long, which is 3 feet. LOL. And based on the beaks of the squid, scientists say that giant squids can technically get up to 66 feet long, and they weigh anywhere between 300 and 600 pounds.
Holy.
So in theory, if you were to see a Kraken in modern day, if we were to experience this cryptid, it could be guesstimated around 60 feet and probably 450 pounds, with a 3 foot long penis. So that's that's releasing the Kraken if I've ever seen it.
Don't sit on that part, maybe. Just be careful. That might piss him off.
So now the general understanding is that it's also got hooked or suction cup tentacles, has the potential to hide in the water by changing color. It will suck you down in a water vortex, and little evidence of a genuine Kraken exists, but we do have hope that it has once existed because cephalopods used to be much bigger back in the day.
Cool.
And so I mentioned this earlier on, but there were prehistoric squids that got up to 30 meters, which is 100 feet. And they used to eat this one type of maritime dinosaur that was basically the prehistoric version of dolphins.
It's
just
actually
to give
called
you
an
idea.
Owensaur. We're trying to take the name back. We're trying to take the name and
we're revamping. We're rebranding.
Revamping the name. Rebranding.
But so basically these prehistoric squids used to eat prehistoric dolphins.
No. Ew.
Just to give you an idea of their size. And these, there is some criticism because a lot of those prehistoric squids don't have the same behaviors as cephalopods today, but people could also just chalk that up to like evolution. But the most recent information we have about Kraken / giant squid is in 2004, Japanese researchers finally got the very first picture of a giant squid.
Really?
And it does look very Kraken-y.
No one had gotten one before 2004?
Apparently not.
Wow.
That freaks me out a little bit because
Me too.
I mean, it looks like it was meant for a horror movie in terms like they couldn't have asked him to pose better. Hang on. Here he is. I think that yes, first picture of live giant squid.
Oh my god. Let me do a little zoomaroo.
He's very
God. It is a horror movie.
Very Cthulhu Kraken-y.
Yeah, he's like underwater too, folks. If you're trying to picture this, he's like in the depths of the sea.
So this was the first picture. This was in 2004. And then 8 years later, the exact same team of researchers got the very first video footage of a giant squid.
Oh, that would be interesting with all those little arms.
Yeah. And it was 2,000 feet below the Pacific Ocean that they found that.
2,000 feet. No wonder nobody's gotten photos. I'm sending this to the group chat so even has to say can see it, but I'm going to say has to see it and the video.
So notable mentions of a giant squid / Kraken / sea monster is Moby Dick, Clash of the Titans. Although this movie, so Clash of the Titans is based on like, it makes you think that the Kraken is like a Greek myth, but it's not really based on Greek mythology. It's also been featured in Pirates of the Caribbean, and you might have recently in the last couple of years seen Release the Kraken as a hashtag on social media. Again, this comes from the famous line in Clash of the Titans, but it now these days, because Trumpers have to ruin everything, it refers to Trump's old lawyer Sidney Powell, who promised to quote release the Kraken, aka release all of the information to prove voter fraud. So and then from there QAnon picked it up and a bunch of other like Trumpy subgroups, and basically now Release the Kraken is a hashtag meaning like, you know, release real info, tell us the truth. So
give me the emails. What about the emails?
Yeah. So I'm going to end on one thing because everyone seems to love most people seem to love our cryptid slam poetry.
Some people were a little less enthused, but we loved it.
Exactly hated it, but most people really, really loved it.
Yeah.
So there is a poem about the sea monster that comes from 1830. And the English poet, his name was Tennyson. And this is his poem about, you know, not necessarily calling it Kraken, but whatever this Kraken lore is.
All right, here's the poem. Lord Tennyson?
Maybe. Okay. I don't know. I just have English poet Tennyson.
10th grade. Thanks, Miss Rosero.
And this is from 1830. Okay. Below the thunders of the upper deep, far, far beneath in the abysmal sea, his ancient, dreamless, uninvaded sleep, the Kraken. Oh, he did actually. I actually didn't read this until I'm talking about it with you. So he mentioned the Kraken. Great.
You hadn't read it yet.
I wanted to live react with you in case it was really wild.
You are live reacting, that's for sure.
His ancient, dreamless, uninvaded sleep, the Kraken sleepeth, faintest sunlights flee. About his shadowy sides, above him swell huge sponges of millennial growth and height, and far away into the sickly light. From many a wondrous and secret cell, unnumbered and enormous polypi, winnow with giant arms the lumbering green. There hath he lain for ages, and will lie, battening upon huge sea worms in his sleep, until the latter fire shall heat the deep, then once by man and angels to be seen. And roaring he shall rise, and on the surface die.
Whoa.
I know I didn't read that in any like poem, like, you know,
beautiful,
rhythm, but I just kind of wanted to get through it quickly because I know I'm over.
I thought your poem rhythm was great.
It was the choppiest rhythm you've ever seen, but then I guess choppy like the sea.
That's right. It fits.
It was on brand. So anyway, that is the Kraken.
That was beautiful. Wow. What a glorious ending to that.
Thank you.
I love that.
Well, there you have it. Christine, you got to tell us all, master of games as you are, what level of Best Fiends are you at today?
Here's the thing. I don't have my phone on me, so I'm not going to tell you because I don't know offhand. It's definitely very high. It's definitely
Take a guess, like 5 million. I mean, who's to say?
I would say 5,000,002, maybe somewhere around there. I love Best Fiends. You all know that already. Basically, if I'm in a waiting room, if I'm watching TV, if I'm just hanging out, I play me some Best Fiends and it relaxes my brain and it makes me feel like I have a challenge. I'm playing a challenging game, but also just really relaxing. I love it.
Best Fiends is way more fun than other matching puzzle games. You know, the ones where all you do is smash candy over and over. But this one, it's almost too much fun. You can't stop playing, and there are literally thousands of fun puzzles to solve. And Christine, again, level 5 million.
And two.
And two. And two.
Download the 5-star rated puzzle game Best Fiends free today on the App Store or Google Play. That's friends without the R, Best Fiends. So as you all know, I am not drinking right now, but that's not to say I won't start as soon as I am able. And That's Why I Drink, thankfully, is supported by Bright Cellars. If you've ever been overwhelmed in the wine aisle and just bought a random wine and didn't even like it, like I have many times and wasted the money, welcome to Bright Cellars. Your life is about to change. My mother is very thrilled that I am getting Bright Cellars to my home because now she, for some reason, visits me a lot more often. Bright Cellars uses a sophisticated wine algorithm to match you with wines or your mother you are guaranteed to love. All you have to do is take their 30-second quiz and bam, personalized wine right to your door, and you're going to like it.
You can always switch up the amount of reds and whites. If you are a seasonal wine drinker, you can skip an order whenever you want. And Bright Cellars is now offering premium, sustainable, sparkling, and biodynamic wines to their members. For And That's Why We Drink listeners, we are giving you 50% off your first 6-bottle order from Bright Cellars. Go to brightcellars.com/drink. That's Bright Cellars, CELLARS.com/drink to take their 30-second quiz to get your wine matches and receive 50% off your first 6-bottle order.
Get your matches. You will not regret it. Bright Cellars, discover wine you love. Unfortunately, my story today does not feature a poem. I wish it did, but
maybe a song. A lot of your serial killers like to leave songs and love notes.
We got some journal entries, so
okay.
We're getting there. This today, Emmethy,
yeah,
I'm going to tell you the story of Ted Kaczynski, aka no,
aka Big Ted. I don't know.
Unabomber.
Oh, okay. Nope. Sorry.
Nope. No, nothing. Okay. Do you know about?
Okay. So, is he's the guy? It's the one with the shoe, right?
No.
That's the shoe bomber.
Yep.
Okay. So no is the answer. It's one of the things that like I heard a million times, but then eventually I was too scared to ever ask about it, so I just never looked it up.
Well, I will tell you all about it. So this week we're looking at the case of Ted Kaczynski, ex full-time math professor, part-time terrorist, otherwise known as the Unabomber. So between 1978 and 1995, Kaczynski was responsible for the creation and delivery of 16 bombs, many of which had the phrase FC written on them, which I will describe to you later, what exactly that means. 3 people were killed because of the 16 bombs, and 23 others were severely injured. So,
wow.
Theodore Ted Kaczynski was born May 22nd, 1942 in Chicago, Illinois, to Wanda and Theodore Sr., a sausage maker. Chicago classic. They said that as a young child, having suffered from severe hives that put him in the hospital, he experienced really extensive isolation where it was really interesting. So I watched this miniseries on Netflix. I'm always watching a miniseries on Netflix, but this one is called Unabomber in his own words, and it features like one of the only in-depth interviews with him. So It's really cool. And it's pretty well done. It's 4 parts. I've had a lot of weird dreams ever since I binged it. So just be careful. Maybe do some light reading between or some Parks and Rec or something. But
take a break. Take a
breather.
Break.
Yeah. But so they described it where his parents knew something was wrong. He had all these rashes, so they brought him to the hospital. But the policy was that they could only see him 2 days a week, and he was like 2 or 3, like he was really little. So he only saw his parents like 2 days a week for 2 hours. And they said that this created this like horrible social isolation. I mean, he was just alone in a hospital room as a little baby. And so some people believe that's where his kind of psychotic tendencies, like psychosis, kind of creeped in. or I'm sorry, not psychosis, psychopathy.
Mm.
And perhaps that's where it kind of was fostered, because he didn't have a connection to his parents for that very formative period of time. So anyway, his parents described that after that hospital visit, he showed little emotion for months. And before that, he was a very bubbly and fun, happy
Aw.
child. And he just completely did a 180. So
Just completely detached from them, probably.
yeah, like totally detached, not emotional. So really sad. And his parents believe that this time in isolation manifested itself in Ted showing the biggest sympathy for animals who were in cages. That was like his
Wow.
biggest, deepest, emotive response was to animals in cages. Which, oh, okay,
Interesting.
it's better than nothing.
I wonder
Um,
if, I mean, this is such a wild thought. Like, I have, but I wonder if it's like he saw himself in caged animals, of
yeah,
like he
it's
was alone and by himself and
in
nobody was
isolation,
with them.
totally.
Yeah.
And I think the fact that he hadn't had human connection for so long, it makes sense that he would relate to animals.
Right.
And so, yeah, no, I think that makes total sense. He didn't have any friends, at least human ones. And then in 1952, 3 years after Ted's younger brother David was born, who was also featured extensively in the miniseries and is like a very interesting guy. Like I could listen to it and talk about this for days. It's just his side of the
Oh,
story is fascinating. So David was born, and the family moved to Evergreen Park, Illinois, and Ted attended high school there. And in junior high, he scored a 167 on his IQ test, and he skipped, which is genius level, and he skipped from 5th into 7th grade.
whoa.
And yeah, so he's jumping ahead. And remember, he already doesn't have that many friends, so he's kind of already isolated, and now he's joining older kids. And he immersed himself in a variety of after school activities, including math, biology, coin, and German club.
Wow.
Clubs, those are all different.
Oh, okay.
German
Got it.
coin, it's not German coin club or
It's like
German
the Oxford
biology.
comma.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah, we got to put an actually, let me add an Oxford comma
Because
here.
what a club that would have been. That
You know what? That's a very good point. Oxford comma is in.
Okay, cool.
So, and he also played the trombone in the marching band. So,
Wow. So busy,
he's
busy guy.
busy beaver, very smart. And he did find some friends who also loved science and math, and they called themselves the Briefcase Boys because they all had
I
little
love
briefcases.
that.
I know, isn't that cute? Little
That's such a fun
briefcases.
little game. That's a fun little name.
I know, and I feel like kids would be bullied for that back in the day. I don't know if they would be now. I like to think that maybe we're all a little more open-minded, but it's just such a sweet, it's so sweet. I love it.
Yeah, I wonder if it's like the world has changed, or maybe we've just grown up and like have different like values on like what we think are cool. But I would be so jealous of the
Me
Briefcase
too.
Boys.
I'd be like,
I
Mom,
would.
buy me a freaking, forget about this lunchbox. I want a briefcase. Oh, I remember the day I got my SpongeBob lunchbox. I thought it would make me cool. It didn't, but it made me cool to myself. So
I had she definitely listens to this show, so sorry in advance, Mac, but or no, Mare. They're quadruplets, and I mixed one up by accident. But
how dare
first grade, I had the coolest Marvin the Martian lunchbox.
you?
And it was Mac, and she was standing behind me, and just I was like walking with it in hand, and you know how when you're walking, your arm, like one arm goes up front, one goes behind you. My arm was behind at the same moment that she had to throw up, and my entire arm and lunchbox just got covered in her throw up, and I could never use that lunchbox
I was not
again.
expecting that.
And she was like, she's my best friend in first grade, so I was like, I wasn't mad at her, but I was like, motherfucker, like this was the coolest lunchbox I'll
On
ever
this,
see.
of all days and of all items
It
that
was a
I
brand
own,
new one too. I had just bought it. It was so cool. Anyway,
that
sorry,
blows.
Mac.
Well, my SpongeBob lunchbox occurred in 8th grade, which means I was very uncool, but that's okay. Anyway, no briefcases. I had no briefcase. So according to the Washington Post, when Ted turned 12, he and a junior high classmate named Dale Eichelman occasionally played with homemade explosives. And Eichelman later remembered, we would go out to an open field, and I remember Ted had the know-how of putting together things like batteries, wire leads, potassium nitrate, and whatever, and creating explosions. Foreshadowing.
Yeah, sounds like it.
Ted excelled at school. He was even too advanced for his school's advanced math class. which resulted in him skipping 11th grade. So now by attending summer school, he graduated high school at age 15.
I was trying to do the math.
Yeah.
Thank you for that.
You're welcome. 15. We're not in the advanced math class, so I had to write it down for us, but 15 is when he graduated. And because he was nominated as a national merit finalist, me too, BTW. Fun
Were you
fact
really?
about me. Yeah.
Look
and
at you go.
Guess what? They forgot to put it they just forgot to put me on the list.
Well, so technically, there's no proof.
There is, because I was in the local newspaper. I was in the photo.
Okay.
It's really sad. I was in the photo holding the thing, and they like didn't put my name in. And then we asked them about it, and they were like, "Oh, we forgot." And I was like, "That's not very nice." But anyway, classic. Okay, so this part is not like me. He was accepted to Harvard at age 16. So
that's me. Same.
That's more like your speed.
Yeah,
I'm more like the one throwing up in the background on your arm. So he went to Harvard at age 16. He went to college before getting his driver's license. Like, that's how freaking mad genius this kid was.
Which, like, now knowing like I don't know the details, but knowing like the general idea of what's gonna come, it's like, what a waste of potential.
It's very sad. It is. And it's just fascinating how things kind of morph. So when he was at Harvard, understandably, he was sort of a recluse. I mean, he's 16 and all his classmates are in college age. So, and at that point in time, or at that point in your life, a couple of years makes a big difference in developmentally. So he would get back to his dorms after a day of classes, slam the door, and kind of just be alone. He always ate alone. Apparently his room was always such a mess that smelled so bad that students had to ask staff to have the room cleaned. Like, that's how gross it was. Oh my God. Which is
we had that good. And we had that with one of my roommates in college.
Really?
The whole place smelled like literal garbage. And it was because she was on, by the way, fun fact, I still to this day have no idea who she was. I don't know. I know her name was Ashley. Never saw her face once. We had like basically apartment dorms, and she had her own room, so we never saw her, and her room was the one closest to the front door, so as soon as she came into the apartment, she was like hidden in her room.
Yeah,
I literally never once in my life saw her.
Oh no.
And but the room smelled so bad. And apparently it was because she was on the basketball team and she would just leave food in there, and then they would be like traveling for weeks. And we'd be like, I'd be like, girl, get it together. So anyway,
can you imagine coming home like, I'm gonna relax in my bed. Oh, I left a burrito in my bed. Oh shit.
And the entire apartment would just reek. So we had to like we had to have people come in and unlock the door for us so we could take her food out. Yeah.
Okay, that's less sad than I thought. I thought it was going to be like she had, mental health issues and wasn't leaving the room, but it was like she was leaving the room for too long.
she never threw out her garbage. Like, we went in there, and she must have had something where she was weird about her garbage, because the garbage bags, she wouldn't just throw them away. She would like collect them and leave them in her room. So it was just weeks old garbage bags.
I've done that, but it's because I'm lazy. But
I don't know what her situation was, but it just smelled so bad.
That's disgusting. Yeah. So that is apparently what happened here, except the difference is he was in his room not playing basketball, I presume.
Right.
Maybe chess, but maybe Sudoku. I'm not sure, but not basketball. So a fun fact about Ted's time at Harvard. This comes into play later too. In his sophomore year, Ted participated in a 3-year, 200-hour study led by Harvard psychologist Henry Murray, who ended up becoming like a big name in psychology, which was later theorized to be a strand of the CIA's research into mind control and interrogation techniques. And according to the Atlantic Monthly, as part of the study, participants were told they would debate personal philosophy with a fellow student and were asked to write essays detailing their personal beliefs and aspirations. The essays were then turned over to an anonymous individual who would confront and belittle the subject in what Murray, the professor himself, called vehement, sweeping, and personally abusive attacks, using the content of the essays as ammunition.
Wow. So tell us all your like inner private opinions and beliefs vulnerabilities, and we'll just completely destroy you with them.
Completely. And there was
it feels like one of those tactics in cult behavior.
Yes, it like break you down.
Yeah.
Exactly. And that's a really good point because I mean, I'll get into it a little bit later, but essentially, well, actually I'll just get into it now, skip down a little bit. But so basically these participants were then monitored as this like humiliating abuse was just hurled at them. And
Mm.
again, like keep in mind he's 16. He's not even an adult
Oh,
yet. You know what I
poor
mean?
kid.
It
Yeah.
makes it
He's
so much
like,
worse.
this is prime time to always be embarrassed.
Yes, like you're
So,
already like in the most vulnerable, you're a teenager, you're like
yeah.
alone, you know, in a new place. So it's just really shitty. I mean, they basically said like today this would never, ever, ever fly. Like something like this could never pass any sort of,
Right.
you know,
Especially a minor.
especially a minor. Exactly. It's just, it would never happen. And by the way, the participants had no idea that was the study, of course. Like they just,
Oh no.
yeah, they just thought it was like, oh, why don't you write down what you think and feel? And then they just had some guy be like, I've looked at this, and they played clips of it in the mini series, and basically it was like you could just hear this guy like berating and belittling him, and then he would be like, oh, okay, all right,
Oh,
like you just like, what do you even say? And when a
yeah,
full grown
truly.
man is just like verbally assaulting you,
I mean,
basically.
I would shut down. I would just be like, okay, you're
I would
right.
cry for sure.
Yeah.
Like I'm crying just thinking about it. So it's very upsetting. The psych professor, I guess they talked about this, was hoping to learn more about the effect of stress on people, and he was very involved in developing interrogation techniques. And so there's this thing in the CIA called enhanced interrogation,
Mm.
which is interrogation, but on top of that, they added these kind of mind control techniques like drugs, hypnosis, sensory deprivation or isolation, good cop, bad cop. So basically, any sort of psychological torment. Added
Wow.
into interrogation would be called enhanced, with a nice name called enhanced interrogation.
Fun. Okay.
Yeah, it's really lovely. It's basically full on verbal assault, and nowadays obviously completely unethical. And Ted didn't know there was a script. He didn't know that this other person was doing this as part of the study. He just thought this is how he was
Some
being
person just
viewed.
came in here and just started screaming at him.
Yeah, and he basically thought like, I didn't do the study right. Like I just must have done something completely wrong.
Wow.
And that definitely comes into play, in my opinion, later on when you hear like what his beliefs and aspirations were. And
Oh
so
no.
I know it's it's just like really dark when
Is
you
it
learn
like
that
I
part.
just want to go make people feel happy and then they were like, "You fucking dumbass."
Not quite, not
Okay, cuz
quite,
that would have been really heartbreaking.
but it's sort of, it's like, well, you decide because I don't know how to frame it,
Okay.
but
Okay.
Um, so there was a former CIA officer that was actually interviewed in the docuseries who was involved with enhanced interrogation of a high-ranking member of Al Qaeda,
Ooh.
and he was interviewed and he clarified that it is fully, he's like, it's torture. Like we call it enhanced interrogation, but I was involved with it and it's torture. Um, and he said the tactics the CIA used in these instances were a direct result of what this professor Henry Murray had developed throughout his study. So
Whoa.
like they took these exact methods that you know, he was a part of, that Ted was a part of, and turned those into interrogation methods. And he said to specify they weren't inspired by the studies, they were directly derived from his work. So
Whoa.
it wasn't even like a connection, it was like, no, this is exactly how we developed our process.
Oh my god.
So really dark. The process being that you can break someone down, alter their minds, and they would be psychologically broken down, and they called it in the show dislocated, to then be reformed to a pliable or cooperative source.
Ugh.
Yeah, icky. It does sound culty and torture. I mean, it's psychological torture. And again, he was a child. So it's like,
Wow.
really unethical.
Whoa.
I mean, I couldn't listen. I actually had to skip forward because I was getting like so upset. I was like, I can't listen to this like cruel verbal abuse. It's just too much. So I couldn't listen to it. But oh, and by the way, these records are all sealed. Like they have like little clips of it, but this, it's fully sealed, so nobody can, people who are studying him can't go back and listen to all of it to make sure like, hey, I wonder if this had any connection.
Wow.
So that's all we know. We don't know that like full details, but it is interesting that it's like fully sealed and we can't actually access it.
Yeah,
Anyway,
says something, doesn't it?
it does. And like that's a side note, but you know, I think it kind of comes into play. So anyway, after his time at Harvard, Ted completed a PhD in mathematics in 1967 at the University of Michigan, where his advisor called his dissertation the best I have ever directed. This kid's a genius.
Wow.
Yeah, his PhD, in fact, or his dissertation was so highbrow that Maxwell Reed, a member of his dissertation committee, said, I would guess that maybe 10 or 12 men in the country understood or appreciated it, which is like,
Oh, okay. My guy.
Men.
And let me guess, you're one of the 10.
Yeah, of course you are. Yeah.
Got it.
You're one of the special dozen.
Can you remind me what the topic was?
It was just in mathematics.
Just mathematics? Okay. Wow.
I'm sure that it's listed somewhere. I'm sure it'll mean nothing to me, but mathematics is the overarching umbrella term.
He's a math guy.
Yeah, we didn't know how to add up to 15, so I don't know if we'll get it, but so this PhD led him to gain his assistant professorship at Berkeley by the age of 25. So he literally had a doctorate by age 25, was a professor. He was the youngest professor in the history of the University of California. And a mathematics professor, like, you know, not that certain subjects being a professor is easier or harder, but it's like such a very specific track. Well, I feel like, to become a mathematics professor.
I remember in psychology there was because psychology is part of STEM, but right. They have like their own list of like who makes fun of who, like the chemists make fun of the mathematics, who make fun of the whatever, and all the way down at the bottom it's like the biologists make fun of the psychologists, who make fun of the sociologists, who like, I remember being like at the bottom level of like just getting roasted all the time.
What about the German mate? No, I'm just kidding. Journalists? Yeah, womp womp. I wasn't even on the list. Okay, so how does that feel? Anyway.
No, it was specifically for like the certain science would laugh at other science, would laugh at other science.
It's funny. What was at the top of the food chain?
It was physics or chemistry.
Sure, that makes sense. Chemistry makes sense.
The top three were physics, chemistry, and math.
Yeah, makes sense.
So,
man, you got to duke it out up there, I guess. Jeez.
I know.
Okay. Ugh. So basically 10 or 12 men in the country, including this lovely man named Maxwell, apparently understood this mathematical concept that Ted had talked about. But he had this, now he was the youngest professor in the history of University of California. And it was all going so well, seemingly, but then without explanation, on June 30th of 1969, he just resigned with a 2-line note to his department chairman, basically saying, I'm out. Not really any more detail than that. And according to the Crime Museum's website, teaching proved to be too much of a task for his awkward and reserved social nature. So he was able to succeed academically, but when it came to kind of the social aspect of being a professor and having students, it was just too much for him. And as someone who did briefly teach a class in grad school of a bunch of freshmen, it is my worst nightmare, and I never want to do it again.
I still have never learned anything about that from you. We'll have to talk
it's
about
like
that
it was scary. It was scary as shit. It was scary. They called me professor, and I was like, don't call me. I'm not a professor. Trust me. I'm the farthest thing. But I had to pretend to be like really authoritative because they're a bunch of 18-year-olds. I had, I think, 22 kids in my class. I mean, anyway, it was hell, but whatever. Okay.
We're gonna have to talk about that eventually, because
one of them reached out to me on Twitter, and I was like, oh my God, hi.
Did they listen to the show or something?
Yeah, they listened to the show. This is like 2 years ago, but
they were like, Professor Schiefer?
He was like, do you remember me? I was like, yeah, you were actually a really good writer. Anyway, it was very cute, but sorry, side note. But so I get it, Ted, teaching scary stuff. So after resigning from Berkeley, he moved back in with his parents in Lombard, Illinois. And then in 1971, he decided to move to Montana into a very remote cabin in the middle of nowhere, basically.
Wow.
So Lincoln, Montana, his cabin contained a bed, 2 chairs, storage trunks, a gas stove, and loads of books.
Wow.
And his reasoning was that he wanted to be living a simpler life devoid of money, electricity, or running water. He wanted to go like back to nature, back to the basics. And his only source of income would be odd jobs and whatever his family could send him to help him out.
Wow. Can you imagine being his parents though and being like, wow, Harvard genius, Harvard PhD math genius. And he just wants to go, like, I can imagine like the Jewish mother in me is like screaming. I totally respect his opinion, but I can also just hear the criticism.
It's sort of like, wait, you're asking me for $20? You just got your PhD and had the youngest professor in history, and you need $20 to buy like gas for your gasoline stove. Yeah, it's pretty wild. So he just like totally flipped, went out into nature. It was like, this is my life now. And according to his dream was to be completely self-sufficient and live autonomously in the most natural conditions without any help, basically off the grid. And according to the Washington Post, in their article called The Profile of a Loner, for food, he hunted squirrels, rabbits, and porcupines. He would
Wow.
skin them and barbecue them in a fire pit outside his cabin. So
Ugh.
cute.
Nope.
He's
That's
that
where I draw.
neighbor where everyone
Yeah.
kind of does the like
It's
long
my
way
father.
around.
He's my
Your
fucking
father.
father.
You got the Jewish mother, the father in the woods. It's quite a tale you're spinning here.
It's clear I was raised by the Jewish mother and not the woodland creature.
The skinning porcupines one, yeah.
Yeah.
Mhm. So, as the Montana newsmakers would later report, Kaczynski spent most of his time alone, riding an old bike into Lincoln every few weeks to visit the library and supplement the food he grew. And according to the Crime Museum, again, it was all going well until over the years he began to notice the land around him increasingly becoming sort of developed and being destroyed by industrial growth.
Mm.
And he did not like this. He developed a hatred of all things industrial, gentrified, and capitalist. In an interview with the New York Times after his arrest, he discussed nature being destroyed all around him. He described a rolling country, not flat, and when you get to the edge of it, you find these ravines that cut very steeply into cliff-like drop-offs, and there was even a waterfall there. It was about a 2 days hike from my cabin. That was the best spot until one day I went back to the plateau, and when I got there, I found they had put a road right through the middle of it. You just can't imagine how upset I was. It was from that point on that I decided that rather than trying to acquire further wilderness skills, I would work on getting back at the system. Revenge.
Wow.
That was a
Okay.
turning point.
And so far, it sounds lovely. I know, like, I'm totally fine with like him being like, I, want to take a stand against, hurting our environment. I get that.
Yes.
But it's about to very quickly go downhill, isn't it?
Yes. And there's
Okay.
definitely a line where you think, yeah, because there's a part where you're like, I get it. You're against industrialism, gentrification, capitalism. Like, I get it. I'm on board.
Yeah.
And then, but there, in my opinion, at least, there should be a line. Like, there needs to, I think there should be a line as far as injuring other people goes.
Right. We
to
just
make
haven't
your
gotten to that
point.
part yet.
Yeah,
right?
exactly. So, yeah, I'm with you.
Because so far, where I am on the storyline, I'm like, okay, yeah, get back at the system. That's what we all want. But
Right. I keep forgetting you don't know the
I know the word bomb is in his name. Let's put it that way.
Okay, fair.
So,
Okay, fair. So this is my next bullet. Revenge for Ted took the form of explosives.
okay. Well,
Here we go.
which, by the way, bad for the environment.
Yeah, well, yeah, I guess. I mean,
well, depending on how big this explosion is about to be.
Well, I mean, they're like pipe bombs and stuff. I don't think it's like these aren't bombing like, canyons.
Got it. Okay. Got
it. So anyway, according to the Netflix miniseries that I mentioned earlier, he got tips on how to make bombs from chemistry textbooks, and he got whatever pieces he needed by stealing from neighbors' cars, like junk cars that were kind of laying out in people's yards. He would just kind of creep around and take stuff at will. He began making handcrafted bombs from wooden and metal parts by melting metal scraps, and his first mail bomb was so he basically was a mail bomber. He sent his bombs by mail.
Oh, okay. Wow, that fucking sucks. I mean, I knew it wasn't gonna be good, but now that I have that sucks.
Did you ever watch that Mormon docuseries on Netflix that came out recently?
Oh.
Okay, that was also about mail bombing, like package. It's really freaky. The whole concept of, anyway.
No.
Okay, so
sorry.
No, you're good. Sorry, I'm derailing. So his first mail bomb was directed to a professor of materials engineering at Northwestern University named Buckley Christ in May of 1978. So Ted had moved back to Illinois to live with his parents and work with his father and brother at a foam rubber factory called Cushion Pack.
Okay.
And he had left the bomb. So this is kind of interesting. So he'd left the bomb in the University of Illinois car park with Christ's return address on it. So the package was returned to Christ, who, when receiving it, was like, I didn't send this package.
Mm.
And so some campus security came to check it out, and a campus security officer opened it and it exploded.
Wow, that's awful. Okay.
Yeah. If fortunately he survived. But so this is where it's kind of interesting. They kind of theorize this on the show that it was a mail bomb with an address on it and a return address on it, and it went back to the return address, and they were thinking like, why didn't it get mailed? And what they think happened is that he went to the mailbox with it, realized it didn't fit in the mailbox, and so he just left it laying in the parking lot, and they were like, oh, this package needs to be returned to sender.
Oh my God.
So they think it was meant for whoever was on, I don't know who it was, but they think it was meant for whoever was on the address label. He couldn't get it in the mail slot.
Yikes. I mean, I guess that's good that he didn't.
Yeah, because who knows, who would have, maybe it would have gone differently and the person would have died if it got mailed. Exactly. So that's why they think happened, because the rest were mailed and this was his first one. So they think like maybe he made it, didn't even think about the dimensions. It didn't fit in the mailbox. So he just left it there hoping it would get sent back to the person on the return address. And it did. And he had a history, or not a history, but he had a habit of putting different people's return addresses on the labels to like throw people off, to like target people. This was a smart guy. He was like fucking around most of the time. So anyway, this campus security officer opens the package. It explodes. Fortunately, it was just minor injuries that he was impacted with. And his first attack obviously was not as successful as he had hoped. But meanwhile, his working alongside his family was also not successful, because in August of 1978, his brother fired him from the cushion pack factory.
Uh-oh.
Let me tell you why.
Was he stealing materials or something?
No, but that's a good guess.
You would think like a rubber company. Like
you
there's
would. I hadn't even thought of that. Shit. Yeah. Okay. No, it wasn't even that, which actually is a really good guess. But Ted and one of his supervisors had gone on a few dates, and she had given him his first ever kiss, and he was very happy, very excited. He was 36 at this point. His brother remembers him running into his room and like announcing it excitedly. And FBI agent Kathy Puckett later wrote, he writes about how she kissed him, and he describes it like a Martian meeting an Earthling. He said she was doing something with her tongue that he couldn't quite understand. So like he is fully kind of out of his element here.
He's clearly, it's a new territory.
Never been kissed. It's Martian territory.
He doesn't have a Harvard degree on this one.
No, right. Harvard can only get you so far. See, not all of us are Harvard grads. Okay. Anyway, but then after a few dates, she told him she wasn't interested in continuing their relationship. And Ted didn't like that. So he started writing what his brother David called these very unflattering, ugly sort of limericks about her. And he would like post them all over the worksite. So it was like these gross, demeaning, misogynistic like limericks that he would write, and he just plastered them everywhere about her. And obviously very unprofessional, obviously misogynistic. So David was like, I'm giving you an ultimatum. You either stop harassing this woman or you're going to be fired. So Ted responded by posting another limerick the following day. And his brother was like, listen, I got to fire you. And he was like, I was in a corner. Like he was harassing his supervisor. He's my brother, but like, he wasn't listening, and he was harassing this woman. So he fired him. And once he had been fired, Ted got into the woman's car and waited for her there. And he would later reveal that he had thoughts of waiting for her to arrive and mutilating her. But while he was in the car, he decided against it, got out of the car, and went home.
Well, good?
Can you imagine finding out later, like, oh, all day he was hiding in your car?
Someone was in your fucking car and going to mutilate you.
Like contemplating it the entire time while you were inside. I mean, really terrifying.
Wow, that's awful.
So this just gives you a little glimpse into his derogatory outlook on women. According to psychologist Sarah Reed, because of his lack of experience with them, he felt extreme amounts of rage, shame, and humiliation towards women. According to his neighbor, Wendy Gehring, in the Netflix documentary, she said, in my opinion, he hated women. He had no use for us, which is like chilling as fuck.
That is sorry, I just started thinking of this TikTok where they did studies apparently on men watching women in certain outfits, and like it already starts at a baseline of men seeing women as objects, and then it just got I was thinking like, oh wow, like he really just sees them as objects, and then it spiraled.
Yeah.
Sorry.
I mean, he doesn't even see them as objects because he doesn't even have a use for them because he doesn't even know how to kiss them.
Yeah, they don't even offer a function.
Exactly. They don't even register as like a sex object. Like he just has zero use for them, which is just like weirdly creepy because it's like, it's not even like the gross misogynistic thing of like, I view you as an object I want to use. It's just like, you literally don't
see
matter
you as
to me.
Nothing.
Exactly.
Wow.
So anyway, the attacks continued. While in Illinois in May of 79, Ted left a bomb hidden in a Phillies brand cigar box on a table in the technical building on the Northwestern University campus. The device was left untouched until mid-afternoon when a grad student in the civil engineering department saw the box and thought it was just like leftover equipment from the engineering lab, opened it, and it exploded and caused him cuts and burns, no serious injuries, thank God. So about 6 months later, in November of 1979, Ted managed to sneak a bomb onto American Airlines Flight 444 from Chicago to Washington, D.C. Not in his shoe.
Right.
That was another guy. But there's apparently plenty of guys who want to bomb airplanes, I guess.
Yeah, Jesus. Like, why? I don't understand bombing anyone, but especially like, why does everyone pick a fucking plane?
I think it's just so blatantly destructive and dramatic. And I mean, you have people trapped, you know exactly the number of people.
What a full circle then, because he used to only love caged animals, and then he's like causing people to be a caged animal.
Yes. I think if it were a plane full of dogs, maybe they wouldn't have.
He wouldn't have touched it.
He wouldn't have touched it.
Nope.
I'd love a plane full of dogs. How fun would that be? Okay.
I love like being on the ground with a bunch of dogs, actually.
Yeah, maybe not a plane. Maybe the plane is landed and we're all just like on Air Force One, like having.
Maybe we're at a plane party and everyone's chewing on like plain stuffed animals. And
yeah. Okay. So anyway, he snuck a bomb on, and thank fuck, due to a fault in the mechanism, it didn't properly explode and only caused a small fire on the plane. However, if Ted's plan had worked successfully, according to Time, a Boeing 747 passenger jet might have just fallen out of the sky that day. Whoa. So it had the potential to take down an entire Boeing 747, and thankfully he made a mistake and it just caused a fire that everyone survived. So he's getting pissed, by the way. Like, he is watching this and going like, I keep fucking up. This is not my
yes, you
plan. Yeah, thankfully. But he is not happy. Then in 1980, he sends his next bomb to the president of United Airlines, Percy Wood, and it injured him, didn't kill him. But then in October of 81, a package was discovered in a University of Utah hallway, diffused by a bomb squad. He's just getting fucking foiled left and right.
And this doesn't feel anymore like it's like it's for the sake of environmentalism. Like, is there a reason for these?
Yeah.
Like, what connection does it have?
They're all people who he thinks are furthering industrialism, science that is gonna turn us away from nature.
So it's not really like anything direct. He's just picking people who are like a part of the system.
Yes, exactly. And his view was it's more destructive to attack like the president of like ExxonMobil. I mean, that's just an example, than it is to, I don't know. That was like his
MO
or his belief was that attacking like the person at the head of it would send a stronger message, I guess.
Got it.
Than anything else. I mean, not really if it's not working, but he's trying.
Just keep causing little fires everywhere.
Little fires. That's a book. Little Fires Everywhere. Anyway, the following May, a bomb was sent to Vanderbilt University professor Patrick C. Fisher. The package had originally been mailed to Penn State, where it was thought that Fisher was still teaching. But when they got it, they were like, oh no, he's actually moved to Vanderbilt. So they forwarded the package to Vanderbilt.
Oh my God.
Oh my God. And so it turned out he was away in Puerto Rico. And unfortunately, his secretary, Janet Smith, opened the bomb, and Although it didn't kill her, she was like scarred for the rest of her life on her arms and face from the
Oh God.
explosion. And the package had been marked with the return address of a man named Leroy Berenson, an electrical engineering professor at Brigham Young University. But of course, they interviewed him, interviewed him, and he was like, "I did not send that. Like, I have no idea what this is." But like,
Wow.
Ted was just fucking around and putting like one professor on the return address and one on the to just screw with the system.
Jeez. Okay.
So he would write another person's or even sometimes just like a fake return address on the package, and it was just like a running element to throw people off. And so that was what they thought happened with that first. This is when they were like, okay, maybe that first package he left in a car park was
Mm-hmm.
meant to go in the mail, but
Right.
he fucked up and that's why it got returned to the wrong guy.
So is this how, when all of these, the ones you've listed so far, are happening, they didn't know it was him. They were just
No,
trying to
no.
they were just trying to find
Yeah.
they
Yeah.
were still in the middle of investigating all this.
They were
Okay.
like, somebody is terrorizing these universities and
Got it.
companies. Exactly. So they did not know who it was. So Kaczynski's next two attacks spanned the next 3 years, and they were both targeted at his alma mater. So he had gone to UC Berkeley, and on July 2nd of 1982, engineering professor Diogenes J. Angelakos, sounds very Greek, mistook a bomb for a discarded piece of equipment on the floor. And when he lifted the object's handle, it exploded and caused serious injuries to his hand, arm, and face.
Ugh.
And then on May 15th of 85, Berkeley grad student and Air Force captain John Hauser opened a 3-ring binder that he had left laying around, and it turned
A
out to be a
3-ring
bomb.
binder. Oh my God.
Yeah,
Wow.
so he's kind of
Not
all
even a
over the
box
place.
anymore. He's like getting like creative with this
Yeah,
stuff.
it was like a
Ugh.
binder, and when you opened it, it would explode, and it actually blew off 4 of his fingers, and he lost vision in one eye. And he talks about it in the miniseries, and he said he was wearing his Air Force ring, and it embedded itself into the wall with his fingers.
Whoa.
Yeah.
Oh my God.
And that's how, and he
Wow.
described it to the trauma of it and saying like it was slow motion, and he just remembers, like he said it was like the Matrix when he's kind of
Yeah.
going through the bullets or whatever. He's like, it was like that, like slow motion. His fingers just kind of blew off his own hand, and
Oh my
he
God.
lost his vision in one eye.
Whoa. Oh my
So
God.
it's getting worse. Thankfully, nobody has died yet, but it's getting worse. The year of 85, Ted made and sent a total of 4 bombs, which was, I think, the most in like that brief of a time span. So on June 13th of 85, a brown addressless paper package arrived at the fabrication division of Boeing, like
Oh
the
my God.
airplane manufacturer,
Yeah.
in Auburn, Washington. And thankfully, employees were able to partially open it, see it was a bomb, and call the bomb squad, who were able to defuse it. But I mean, think about it. He put it in a addressless paper package to
Yeah.
an
Thank
airline. Like,
thank God it was like something really like obviously,
yeah.
so people, I mean, like had he just done it in a box, like someone would have died.
Yeah, like a 3-ring binder, just like
Yeah.
toss it on the floor. Exactly. So thankfully, they were able to kind of just peek at it, see that if they opened it, it would explode, call the bomb squad, who defused it. Then on November 15th of 85, University of Michigan psychology professor, which is where he went to get his PhD, James McConnell, received a package from a professor at University of Utah named Ralph Kloppenberg. And on the outside of the package, Kloppenberg had written a message to McConnell saying that there was a manuscript inside that he wanted his notes on. So
What?
so the professor gets a package from this other professor being like, "Hey, here's a manuscript, like could you take a look at it?" So of course it's like,
Okay.
"Oh, okay." Like one academic sending another academic
Sure.
his work. Like he's just fucking around with these people. And so when opened by the assistant, of course, which I feel like he's
Oh.
also not thinking through, like
Yeah,
these
this
are
is a
all,
random person who just got like a 9 to 5 job. Like,
yeah, they're not and also like these are high-ranking people a lot of the time who have assistants to open their
yeah.
mail, or especially if they're like out of town or on vacation. So the assistant opened it, and it exploded and injured his arm, and he lost part of his hearing.
Jeez.
And although at this point now Ted has been sending bombs since 1978, it wasn't until December of 85 that Ted murdered his first victim and, in his words,
Whoa.
succeeded with his bomb.
Ugh.
Yeah.
And how long has he been doing this now?
So 78 is the first bomb he sent, and now
78.
it's
Wow.
1985. So 7 years.
It took him that fucking long.
Yeah.
I'm shocked. I mean, I'm glad that people weren't dying before that, but like, you would think that he would have done it faster.
I know, with that IQ, man, you know?
Yeah. Yeah.
So Sacramento-based computer store owner, 38-year-old Hugh Scruton, he just owned a computer store, this guy. It's not even like he, was running some oil rig. Like,
it's starting to feel like the movie Saw, like the Saw franchise, because originally the killer was going after people who like quote deserved to die, and then by the end of the franchise it was just random fucking killing. Like it was just like getting
like it's
really
almost
sloppy.
I definitely never saw the Saw movies, as you can probably guess, but I think I know what you're saying, and it's almost like an excuse to harm people, and then it gets out of hand. Like,
Yeah.
like, oh no, they deserve it, and then it's like it gets out of control. Yeah, it's almost the same way, and it's sort of like he owns a computer store. He's not like Steve Jobs, he's not like creating the next wave in technology. So it's just sad. So anyway, this guy runs a computer store, 38 years old. He sees this package left in the parking lot outside his store. He opens it, and the package is filled with nails, and it explodes and kills him. And one of the metal plugs on the bomb with the letters FC engraved into it pierces his heart. So he is killed by this bomb.
Oh my God.
And it seems that Ted then went on a break, because it wasn't until 2 years later that another computer store was attacked in 87 against a man named Gary Wright, who's the vice president of a computer repair company in Salt Lake City. And he was seriously injured by a package left in the parking lot. He survived, but the explosion severed nerves in his arm, and 200 pieces of shrapnel exploded into his body.
Holy shit.
Yeah. So
oh my God. Wow.
Extremely violent and gruesome. And he was actually driving to Utah at this point, which they didn't know, but he was driving to Utah or taking the bus to Utah to mail these packages, as sort of like,
whoa,
to not
so
be
he
in
wouldn't
his,
get caught.
exactly, to not be in his home base. So he would be in Salt Lake, and that's when he would like leave them in parking lots, that kind of thing, or he would mail them directly from Utah.
Got it.
So this time, however, like I said, he was in Salt Lake, and he was not as dexterous at escaping, because a secretary had observed a man with a mustache wearing a sweatshirt leaving a package in the car park. And she hadn't really thought much of it, of course, until this happened. And then she was like, wait, I saw a sketchy dude out there. So the employee was interviewed by police, and her descriptions would help create the famous sketch of the Unabomber, which would be used in the investigation. Have you seen this picture? I'll send it to you.
No.
This is like the famous Unabomber.
Maybe I have seen it. I just
you might have. So it's him wearing like aviators and a hoodie.
Oh, yes, I've seen this picture.
Yeah, so it's a pretty well-known photo, not photo, but drawing, I guess. And so that's kind of the description she gave to police, and that's what started to spread around town, around the news and that kind of thing. They were starting to finally put more details to who this mysterious bomber was.
Right.
So when the sketch was released, Ted kind of stepped back into the shadows, and he didn't show up again until 6 years later. So there was almost a lull where people were like, okay, maybe it's over, which is almost even scarier, because you don't know if it's over because they haven't caught him. But then
also because there was like that weird 2-year gap, and and there was like 7 years or 8 years before he
where it didn't even
nothing, like no one was dying, like, so you just, for all you know, like he just was taking a hiatus and he'll be back.
Yeah, and some people thought, well, maybe he was arrested for some other charge, which sometimes happens to killers, and he's in jail. But like, nope, he was just hiding out in his cabin, and it's not totally clear what he was up to, but we do know that in 1988 and 1991 he had written a letter to mental health professionals requesting psychiatric counseling.
Wow.
Interesting.
But I didn't see that coming.
I know. But then he went and like freaked out and was like just spewed hatred at the psychiatrist. And at one point he
Whoa.
requested a sex change, but it
Okay.
wasn't because of gender dysphoria. It was they describe the psychologist described it in the episode, and she was like, it's an extremely rare thing where he didn't relate to being a woman, but he thought I'll be honest with you, I couldn't fully understand it, but he requested one, and then they set up a meeting to like meet with him, and he was like, I'd rather die. And they were like, okay, well, you set
What?
this meeting.
So
I don't know.
like you wanted like gender reassignment surgery, and
Yeah.
you're now
He
like, I
wrote-
would literally rather do anything else. Then why'd you come to this meeting?
Exactly. He like wrote like, I would like a sex change. Obviously, that's the wording he used.
Right.
And they were like, well, okay, you have to come in and have psychiatric evaluation. Like, we'll talk to you. And then he went into the meeting and then was like,
He's
I'd rather
just
die.
like just flip the switch. Like it just like
Yeah. Yes.
in that point, why wouldn't you just call and say, hey, I'm not coming. I changed my mind.
So you'd think
Okay.
so. But
Anyway.
so he was clearly going through some things, and he had a lot of anger, and he wrote at one point that he was having dreams where he was talking to a psychiatrist and they would be trying to help him, and he would become so angry that he would kill the psychiatrist, and then he would be happy and relieved. So
what the fuck?
Those are his dreams. And
I don't know why
meanwhile-
that shocked me at all.
I know,
it
it's
shouldn't
just-
have.
It's just odd because on the one hand, he's like, I'm requesting help, psychiatric help. And then on the other hand, he's like, but I'm also dreaming of the many ways I could murder you. It's
Right. Still
just-
haven't mutilated a woman yet.
yeah, it's just bizarre, the goings on in his head at this point. And it's so 6 years here where he's going to have gender reassignment surgery, not going to have it, then hating women, then hating psychiatrists, then wanting to talk to psychiatrists. It's all very confusing. Anyway, so we don't know what he was up to, but his second letter was sent after his father, Theodore Sr., who had recently been diagnosed with lung cancer, had died by suicide in their family home in Chicago, and his wife and son were in the other room. Yeah.
Oh my God.
So that really triggered a lot of emotional and psychiatric distress, obviously.
Whoa. Okay.
And that was part of the this whirlwind I just described of seeking help,
Right.
and then rejecting help, and then feeling violent, and that was
Wow.
all mixed in any case. So after his hiatus, Ted traveled to Sacramento, where he mailed 2 bombs. So it's been 6 years. He's gotten over it, I guess. And now he's back in it. He's back on top. He mails 2 bombs. One is addressed to Dr. Charles Epstein, who's a geneticist at the University of California, and one to David Galanter, a computer science professor at Yale. And fun fact, the name Galanta in German means the learned one. So it's almost like he was meant to be a professor.
That actually is really cool.
That's
That's
a cute name.
That's the nicest thing you've said all day.
I know, right? Just a little fun fact. Okay, so on June 22nd of 93, Epstein's package arrives, and his daughter brings it in from the mailbox. I mean, it's all just so harrowing to think about. So his daughter brings it in from the mailbox and leaves it on the kitchen counter for him.
Okay.
When he opens it, the bomb explodes. He breaks his arm. He severs several of his fingers. And this is another example of, so this man's a geneticist, and he's been working on developing medical care for people with Down syndrome. And it's like, this is the person that you think is destroying the world. You know what I mean? It's like, that's your target.
Yeah. Wow.
It just starts to not really make total sense.
It makes no sense anymore. Yeah.
It's almost like he just picks people that he feels like or doesn't like, or who knows, but
truly.
So this man was like, that was his research and his life's work. And thankfully, again, he wasn't killed, but he was severely injured. I'm sure his whole family, especially his daughter who just brought it into the kitchen, was horrified, traumatized. So a day later, the other package arrives for the learned one, Dr. Galanter. I don't know how you say it, Dr. Galanter.
The learned one.
The learned one, we'll go with that. Big P.
Big P.
And so when he opens it, he lost sight in one eye and hearing in one ear.
Oh my
God. And then shortly after the bombing, the switchboard at the Veterans Affairs Medical Center received a call saying, "You are next."
So now he's like telling people what's gonna
Now
fucking
he's
happen.
being a huge serial killer creep type behavior. He calls the switchboard and says, "You are next." So in July of 1993, the FBI had enough. And they're like, "We got to put together a task force." You know how the FBI loves a task force. So
Love a good task force.
love it. They put something together called a Unabomb, UNABOM, Unabomb Task Force, consisting of 125 FBI, Bureau of Alcohol, Tobacco, and Firearms, and U.S. Postal Inspection Service agents in San Francisco to find this bomber once and for all.
Wow. And what year is this?
This is 1993. So it's been going on since 78.
Jesus Christ.
Yeah. And it's all over the place. Like, think about it. It's like once it's an airplane, and then it's Vanderbilt University, and then
yeah, for forever they must have been thinking they were different people. Like,
yeah, how could you even relate them? And then the way they did though was he would put FC on all of the but I'll get to that. But that is one of the ways that they were like, okay, this clearly is the same guy. But it's very confusing. Like sometimes it's a computer store parking lot, and then it's like the head of like it's beyond. All over the place. So the name Unabomber, interestingly enough, I'm going to tell you what it comes from. They called him that because the bombs were typically sent to universities and airlines, so they just said UNA. I never knew that. I thought it was like like one person.
Yeah. So wait, universities
and airlines, so they just called it Unabomber. UNA.
Whoa. Okay. Yeah. I had no fucking clue.
I thought it was like a solo bomber, you know?
That's what I thought. I thought, oh, one bomb at a time. Like
just one at a time. Solo mission. Yeah, that's what I always thought. But apparently it's from universities and airlines because those were his primary targets that they could figure out.
Wow.
So the Unabomber investigation, they set up a hotline to take calls and offered a $1 million reward for anyone who could provide information. What they didn't know is just how isolated this guy was. So, like a lot of killers, they were explaining in the show, a lot of killers can't hide as well as they think they can because they have neighbors, they have family, they have somebody might suspect something, or he might slip up, or they might recognize his face in the grocery store. But he was so far removed from anybody that like
society,
from electricity, that like people just weren't putting it together. Like barely anyone knew him. And we'll get to how he was caught, but that's interesting in and of itself. But so they were thinking someone has to recognize this guy, someone has to know him, and like nobody fucking knows who he is.
Wow.
So there wasn't really much information. In fact, he actively sought ways to lead investigators off his scent. And the problem is a lot of criminals are dumb. He was not.
He was a literal Harvard PhD genius.
Like a literal genius. Me saying literal genius makes me sound like
he's
literally
like
least
literally
genius.
the smartest person in the whole world.
He's like literally a genius. Yikes. I told you I didn't go to Harvard, everybody. Calm down. Okay. So consistently, like I said, all these bombs contain a metal plate stamped with the initials FC, one of which pierced that guy's heart, the person that he killed.
Yeah.
So at the time, police didn't understand what FC meant. One theory was that FC was someone's initials, like he was signing the bomb. So the Unabomber wrote some letters to newspapers claiming that it meant Freedom Club. And he was saying this was like eco-terrorists, like a group of eco-terrorists he was a part of that was responsible for the bombings. I mean, obviously it was just him, but he was kind of portraying this like big organization.
Sure.
He wanted it to seem like there was this like group of warriors behind these bombs that were responsible for it, even though it was just a Unabomber. You know, solo mission.
I hear you. I hear you. You know, I'm thinking about those poor briefcase boys. Like they they were probably like, God damn it! Like we should have just never even told him that like a club was something you want to be a part of.
Oh, you're right. They're like, well, I hope they don't think we're in the Freedom Club, the FC. We're in the.
They're like
the BC, the briefcase club.
The BB, the briefcase boys. No, I just feel bad though. Like they probably are like shit. Like this guy. I mean, they really have no attachment to this part of it, but you brought up a club, and I was like, well, first club he was in was the Briefcase Boys. They probably feel really icky about that now.
A club ever since then, I guess.
Yeah,
he was in the German club, the Coin Club.
He's just chasing the high of a club,
being a member. Yeah, so he said that's what FC stood for. Authorities have suggested, though, that maybe it stands for an obscene phrase like fuck
Oh.
computers,
Oh.
which I thought was interesting. At one point, a university where
Capitalism?
oh, that's good.
I don't know.
Yeah, that's good. That's probably better than fuck computers, but who knows?
I don't know.
So at one point, this is really it's like funny and sad. At one point, a university employee whose initials were FC was like taken in as a suspect.
Oh my god. They
And
probably were like, you need to come with us just fucking in case.
the FBI was like, fucking come with us. And he openly had a contempt for computers and technology. So they were like, well, this fits. And he just
Yeah.
like wrong name, wrong time, like wrong hobby, wrong dislikes. And they took him in. And he was later cleared of suspicion, thankfully. So one bomb that didn't detonate, there was a note inside that read Woo, W-U, sort of like the name, Woo.
Okay.
It works. I told you it would. RV. So now they're like, oh shit, this bomb didn't explode and we've got it. We've got some initials. We got to figure out who Woo is, and we have initials RV. It was all made up. Like he just wrote shit.
Well, yeah, like there's
to
no
throw them
way.
off.
I mean, realistically, if we were chasing down a 15-year bombing person who's bombing people, and he never showed any clues before, and now all of a sudden said RV, I'd be like, okay, those are the two letters we can actively not pay attention to. Yeah.
But so he wrote like strange notes. He put, oh my God, this is one of the wildest things. He went so far as to enter a bus stop bathroom, grab a few pubic hairs, and then put them in the bombs so that they'd be like, we have DNA. And it was just random fucking people from the bus shelter.
Those poor people who probably got pulled in by cops being like, are you the Unabomber? And they were like, what?
I just pissed in the wrong bathroom.
Oh my God.
Also gross, but
I'm imagining, fingers crossed, there was like some at least toilet paper in between his fingers and a random person's pubes.
He went around and just like picked up pubic. Like that's how invested he was in just like fucking around with this. He was like, I will just send them into different directions all over the place.
Jeez.
So on December 10th of 94, he kills another victim. This time it's Thomas Mosser, the executive vice president of an advertising agency called Young and Rubicam. And then in 95, in April, he murdered Gilbert Brent Murray, president of the California Forestry Association, and he murdered him by mail bomb. So now he's gotten it together, I guess, as far as like his technique, and he's now killed 3 people, 2 back to back. So around this time, Dr. Philip Sharp at MIT, as well as Dr. Richard Roberts of the New England Biolab, started receiving these sinister letters, which warned it would be beneficial to your health to stop your research in genetics.
Oh my God.
So he's threatening them. I guess he never sent one to the Veterans Affairs. He gave up on that. I don't really know. But he started sending threatening letters to people who were studying genetics. He had this idea that like they were trying to turn humans into computers, and like one day we would all be, which is like that old sci-fi, like they're trying to store our brains and whatever, and
we can download ourselves into androids.
I think he literally said they're trying to download our brains, and it's like, I mean, I get that, but also that's not like, some of these people are studying Down syndrome, like stop.
Right.
That's not what's happening.
Right.
So anyway, he killed these 2 more people. He starts writing threatening letters. And then Warren Hogue of the New York Times also received a letter from the Unabomber, which outlines the attacks thus far to kind of say like, here's what I've done, basically to prove it's me. And he offers explanations as to why and how he picked his victims. So,
okay. So hang on. So before you tell me,
yeah, what are your thoughts? Because it's just all this is all.
Well, I'm trying to remember all of them. One of them was the guy who got stabbed in the heart.
Mm-hmm.
What was his deal? Did it have to do with their job? I mean, I know their jobs have to do with.
He owned a computer repair store, or vice president of a computer repair store.
Okay, then there was. The only thing I could relate it to is their jobs. And
I mean, it is obvious. It's basically their jobs, and he would go into town on his bicycle, go into the library, which he was known to do. And he would basically just research people's job titles and like decide if they were threatening to him. If they
Which,
were like,
by the way, if you're going off of a standard description of someone's job role,
yeah,
which is never exactly what it is, like that. Okay, so you're just
no,
making sweeping generalizations because like
fully.
so much more goes into a role versus what you know based on the company.
Yeah,
You know,
geneticist, I imagine, could mean 0
a
to
lot of
100.
things.
Yeah,
Yeah.
like total different spectrum. Owning a computer store is not the same as like developing software. Like it's just not right.
Yep.
So he would basically go in the library, do research, find names and addresses, and then find someone to be the return address and would just pick them based on their career path. So, or their industry, I guess. Um, so here's a specific example according to his own letter.
Okay.
Mosser was chosen because of his work for a firm that helped Exxon clean up its public image after the Exxon Valdez incident. And the professors were selected because they were experts in certain fields, presumably
Okay. Sure.
genetics. He claimed to be part of an anarchist group. So this is a description of Ted himself. He claimed to be part of an anarchist group aiming to break down all society into very small, completely autonomous units and discussed aspects of the explosive devices. He also suggested a bargain. If a lengthy manuscript was published, the group would cease their terrorist activities. The letter did add, though, that while they would cease their terrorist activities, they reserved the right to engage in sabotage. So even if they stopped their terrorism, they would still be
Whoa.
allowed to sabotage. And sabotage, in his words,
Right.
was
Let's hear this.
yeah, was considered destruction of property rather than people.
Why couldn't you
So-
just start and end there?
Yeah,
and
that
also,
you'd think.
like that should be the worst of it, maximum.
You'd think, and I believe most people who are anarchists are behind that. They're not like, let's run around bombing humans
Yeah.
at random and
Killing doesn't sound like you're helping anything.
No, especially like if it could be their daughter or their assistant or anyone
Yeah.
holding a package or an entire airplane full of people. Like it just seems to me excessive. So Ted was now on this roll of sending letters. He 3 of the letters were followed by a series of other letters to major publications, which also demanded they publish this 35,000 word manifesto he had written.
Goodbye.
They always have a fucking manifesto.
And it's always way longer than I don't have the energy for that.
It's just like you love to hear yourself talk. We get it. We get it.
Couldn't you why a manifesto that I have to read now? Couldn't you just like record yourself and then like send me the file at like 3 times the speed so I get
like
through
just
it
put it in a
faster?
podcast like everyone else.
Yeah, come
This is
on.
our manifesto.
Hello.
Oh right, technology, not his thing.
Not his thing.
And so he had this 35,000 word essay / manifesto, and he called it Industrial Society and Its Future. And the FBI called it the Unabomber Manifesto. And it also explains what he was doing in those 6 years where he just like...
What was he doing?
Like, writing this manifesto, this 35,000 word.
Of course.
Sorry,
I thought in the manifesto it said,
it explains.
I took up a cooking class and anyway, got it.
No, that is what it sounded like I was saying. Yeah, it explains that he was writing this manifesto and maybe taking a make sushi at home class. I don't know. So he claimed that he would desist from terrorism if his demands were met. And after deliberation among the publications, it was advised that the essay should be published. So they went back and forth on this a lot. Like, we don't want to give anyone ideas and we don't want to like feed his ego, but also we don't want him bombing more people just because we didn't put his letter out. So this guy named Bob Guccione published it, and he owned the magazine Penthouse. So
I don't know where this is going. And yet
God.
I'm fully invested.
Okay, so all it said was that, and I was like, well, I need to know what the fuck is going on here. So
how did he get caught up in this mix?
Exactly. I was like, wait, he's writing letters to the New York Times and Washington Post. How is Penthouse involved? I need to know now. So I went and did a little digaroo, and I found this paragraph on Wiki. Several wildly unsuccessful investments by Guccione, including the Penthouse Boardwalk Hotel and Casino, which lost $160 million, and a never-built nuclear fusion power plant, added to his publishing empire's financial woes. Guccioni's efforts to regain sales and notoriety, which included attempts to get Monica Lewinsky to pose for the magazine, which was parodied in a sketch on Saturday Night Live in
Oh my God.
1998, and offering the Unabomber a free forum for his views, failed to increase readership.
Oh my God.
With the rise of online access to often free pornography in the late 1990s, Penthouse's circulation numbers began to suffer even more. So this was a publicity stunt by Penthouse.
Wow. Oh my God. How on earth? I did not see that at all coming.
That's
from
why I was
this.
like, something is fishy. Like something is up. I don't know what this guy's doing, but something's going on.
Wow.
I bet he didn't do this out of the goodness of his heart. Like there's something
No, not
happening.
at all.
So
I mean, also like his
that.
Monica Lewinsky thing. Like, I
Yikes.
mean, like, no part of this feels genuine.
Yikes. Yeah. He seems like he's kind of dug himself a hole. And he was trying to build a nuclear fusion power. I mean, listen, this guy
was all over the place.
He needed maybe a life coach.
He had a lot of ideas and really threw them all at the wall just to see what would come from it. So.
And maybe none of it really stuck. But so Penthouse said, we'll publish it. And Ted was like, that's not good enough for me. Ted was not having it. He replied that Penthouse was less respectable than the New York Times. Poor Bob is like, wait.
Ow, I was trying to help.
I almost got Monica Lewinsky. He replied that Penthouse was less respectable than the New York Times and the Washington Post, and to increase our chances of getting our stuff published in some respectable periodical, he would reserve the right to plant one and only one bomb intended to kill after our manuscript has been published. So basically, now he's saying...
So he was saying, like, I've got one last one in me, and after that, it's over.
If you publish this manifesto, I'll only kill one more person. It's like,
how about zero? How about zero?
Yeah, he's basically like upping his end of the or their end of the deal because they didn't follow through, I guess. But so the Washington Post published the essay in September of '95, and in Kaczynski's manifesto, he opens with the quote. So everyone's buying out these newspapers to read this fucking wild manifesto. They literally printed the entire 35,000 thing.
Wow.
And so it opens with the quote, "The Industrial Revolution and its consequences have been a disaster for the human race." And in a Rolling Stone article, it outlines the entire point of his manifesto, as he states, is revolution, anarchy. Quote, "Its objective will be to overthrow not governments, but the economic and technological basis of the present society." Now, I'm going to read you a little snippet.
Let's go.
You know what? This is what I meant when you were like, oh, maybe there's a poem in yours. There's a manifesto.
There's literally a 35,000 word manifesto.
Put some smooth jazz under it. It could be poetry.
It could be really fucked up, like jigsaw poetry for sure.
Jigsaw poetry. Oh, okay. Here's paragraph 128. Electricity, indoor plumbing, rapid long-distance communications. How could one argue against any of these things? Yet all these technical advances taken together have created a world in which the average man's fate is no longer in his own hands, but in those of politicians, corporate executives, and remote anonymous technicians and bureaucrats whom he as an individual has no power to influence. So it's basically 35,000 words of that.
Boring.
This part's interesting.
Okay.
Feminists are desperately anxious to prove that women are as strong and as capable as men. Clearly, they are nagged by a fear that women may not be as strong and as capable as men.
Cute.
That's another paragraph.
What a catch.
What a catch.
What a catch. You're right. I guess he's onto something, that feminists are desperate to be proven and seen as equal.
Yeah.
So he wasn't wrong about everything.
Idea.
Mind-blowing.
One person whose ears pricked when the manifesto was released was Ted Kaczynski's brother, David's wife.
Uh-oh. Well, duh. Can you imagine marrying into that family and all of a sudden this fucking guy is on the scene?
She's in the thing too, and she's basically saying exactly that. She's like, David always loved him, like it's his brother, but I was like, what the hell is wrong with this guy?
Yeah.
And like as a sister-in-law, she was like, he hated me. He like sent us this weird letter on our wedding day. Like it just clearly was not a healthy relationship between in-laws. And so she this whole time is telling David, her husband, like, you need to look into your brother. And he said at first when she got this look in her eyes, he was like nervous that she knew something. And when he said it's your brother, he was like, I was so relieved. I was like, well, of course it's not my brother. Like, you know, he just was like, of course not. Like, I know
It's like,
David.
it can't be.
Yeah, it can't be. I know Ted's like weird, but he wouldn't, be this weird, this
Yeah.
extra and murderous. So his wife is like, we need to read this manifesto
It's
and
like,
maybe
my guy, I'm so sorry, but we're gonna have to read this thing.
dude, you married me and you made a vow. So what
Like,
they said.
Go ahead. Sorry.
No. I love your riff.
Thank
So she was saying to him the whole time, basically like, something is up with your brother. And he was like, no. And then when this manifesto was released, she's like, well, maybe we should go read the manifesto and see if this strikes any sort of memory or, relation, whatever. And so they went and all the newspapers had sold out at the local shop. So she's like, let's go check the internet. And he's like, I didn't know what the internet was. And
wow, time.
I know. So they went to the library, which had the internet. And he's like, it was so surreal because I was reading this manifesto on the internet, which like he had never really used before. And he's reading this manifesto and he's like, his heart sank. Like the second he started reading, he was like, it's fucking Ted. Yeah. He was like, it's Ted. And I guess if you see a 35,000 word essay that is this Balloonatoons?
Balloonatoons.
Oh my god. It's like I just can't just stick with the noodles all the way to the top anymore. Oh my god.
I'm so sorry. I'm so sorry to the artists because now I have to ask you, can you go please God, can you go draw some Balloonatoons? Wow, Balloonatoons. How is that on a TV show? TM.
It comes on after Oswald, the late night programming.
It's just children. It's just a bunch of balloon animals all hanging out together.
It's like a Geo and Junie and Mooney balloon animals, and it's just very cute. I can already tell.
June and Moon Balloonatoons. I'm so sorry.
I can't believe I just said that, and then I couldn't escape my way out of it. My brain is fried.
Well done.
My brain is gone. I'm not
Anyways,
kidding.
Tell me about this Balloonatoon.
So this is this fucking I'm so mortified. I'm gonna pee my pants in like 5 seconds.
It's just such a perfect word.
I don't know how it just made sense, and then I said it out loud, and I was like, I guess that there's a reason nobody says this.
No, but why isn't anybody saying it? That's a perfect word. That's like calling someone like a clown. Like, you're just a Balloonatoon. You know that? You fucking Balloonatoon. Get out of here. Who do you think you are?
God. Who do you think
Dummy?
you are? The Unabomber?
Oh my God. I'm sorry. That's officially a word. Like, that's in the doc where that's it. Documented.
Oh my God. Oh, well, so that's, I guess, how I was trying to describe his manifesto. So we could just leave it at that.
Perfect.
But so his brother read it, was like, there's only one Balloonatoon I know that would write something like this, and it is Teddy boy. And so Ted is the one who he was like, fuck, I know it's him. And interestingly enough, David wrote in his memoir, which is called Every Last Tie, the story of the Unabomber and his family. He said he didn't even remember ever hearing the word Unabomber before this. Like, this wasn't even something that was like on his horizon. Like, it wasn't even part of his vocabulary. Like,
he also wasn't touching the internet. He was clearly like not around or something.
Yeah, he was like, reading the paper, but there's only so much he had like heard about this. And his wife saying it's your brother, he was like, dismissed it, like, oh, come on, preposterous.
Right.
So he reads this manifesto and he's like, okay, this reminds me a lot about these letters Ted used to write into publications about the negative effects of technology. And so to be sure, he hired a private investigator named Susan Swanson to kind of take the letters that he had, take the manifesto, see if she thought that they were related, if they were written by the same person. And it's just very sad because like you can see how absolutely heartbroken he is because
Mm,
he's the younger brother, and he said when he was little he asked his mom like what happened to Ted, why doesn't he have any friends, and his mom described the story of him being in the hospital and
right.
being so, and she said don't ever leave your brother because he
Oh,
can't be left behind,
shit. So now
don't
he's got all
ever.
these problems.
Yeah, and he's like, she said don't ever abandon him, and he swore to never abandon his brother. And now he's like, well, shit, I can't, like,
Yeah,
he's clearly a very, very, very sensitive, empathetic person. And so
right.
he was just stuck in this horrible position. Um, and so he hires this private investigator, obviously praying that she's like, no, this is not the same
Yeah.
person.
And then
Um,
she went, I'm sorry, my guy. It's for sure the
she's like,
Balloonatoon.
your wife is right. It's the
Yeah.
Balloonatoon all along. The Balloonatoon in law, actually.
Yeah. Yep.
So meanwhile, David tried to do some snooping of his own. In November of 95, he wrote a letter to his brother being like, hey, why don't I come visit you in Montana? And Ted's response was this: I get just choked with frustration at my inability to get our stinking family off my back once and for all. And
Whoa.
stinking family emphatically includes you. I don't ever want to see you or hear from you or any other member of our family again. So,
Wow.
not interested in.
Even though him and his brother were like in theory kind of close.
Yeah, so his David was like, okay,
It's like, well, that's the nail in the coffin. I'm pretty sure I was still in denial until all of a sudden this
yeah,
behavior happened.
he
So,
was very taken aback, and I think his brother had been growing distant and living out in the middle of nowhere and like didn't like his wife, so I think they were already kind of growing apart, but it was still just so difficult for him clearly emotionally to follow through with this despite even his brother being kind of a jackass in this letter.
and do you think
um
he actually legitimately meant that, or do you think he was trying to like keep his brother away so he wouldn't get caught?
oh, I don't know.
Because
That's
maybe
a
he
really
was
good
like,
question.
it's just better if you're not around, and he just thought, if I'm really like, if I lash out, then you won't come.
That's a really good point. I hadn't thought of that. I have no clue. It could very well be just like him trying to keep his solo
Yeah.
lifestyle and like not have him visit his bomb shell, his literal
As
bomb
he's in the middle of
factory
almost getting arrested. Yeah.
full of bombs surrounded by the FBI. Yeah. Um, so in early 96, an investigator urged FBI hostage negotiator and criminal profiler Clinton R. Van Zant to compare the manifesto uh, and the letters that David had from his brother. And when they looked at them, the criminal profiler determined that there was a 60% overlap. And so he was like, it's worth telling the FBI. I think there's 60% chance that this is the same person, or at least
Wow.
60% of the content seems to be written by the same person. So they're
Right.
like, let's let the FBI know. And when the FBI took a look at this, they were like, okay. It took a while because at this point, there were like thousands of leads coming in every day. And like my uncle, my brother, my boyfriend is the Unabomber, and so they have to
Yeah.
filter through all these. But finally, they look at the evidence and they're like, oh, I think this is the guy we're looking for.
Yeah.
And so they are able to get a search warrant of Ted's house. And when they search his cabin, they find a live bomb.
Well, there you have it.
They
Exhibit A.
I was like, what's the phrase? Exhibit A. Exactly. They find a bomb and they have to defuse it on scene. So that's cool and fun. They discovered detached parts of bombs, handwritten journal entries, which together totaled 40,000 pages.
Oh, okay. So there was more to this manifesto than than we
There
knew
was,
about.
oh, that didn't, by the way, include the manifesto. So the
What?
manifesto was totally separate. The
Wow.
40,000 pages were just like journal entries.
Holy shit. Well, I mean, to be fair though, like if I lived in the woods and
What
had
else would you
no,
do?
if I didn't have social media and all I had was a pen, I guess I'm writing.
Well, you
Fuck.
have a
Like,
bomb too. I mean,
okay, yeah, you've got other things to do, I
a
guess.
pen and a bomb, but yeah, you can only bomb so much in a year. So I guess the rest was
Writing is
writing.
cheaper and easier,
It
so
is, and it's kind of less likely to send you to prison, I would think. But
yeah.
what do I know? So they find these journal entries, 40,000 pages of them. The entries were comprised of bomb making experiments, descriptions of the Unabomber crimes. Every experiment, as he called it, had a number that correlated to it. So like the guy in the whose fingers had been blown off, he was like,
Right.
I was I forget if it was, I think it was 125. He's like, I was experiment number 125. Like it was like listed in
Ew.
the.
So it goes even further to show you that like he didn't just see like women as not
Yes,
even
good
objects. He
point.
saw everybody as, I guess, maybe at best an object.
Or like a subject, or like a
Yeah,
just like
something to
part of
observe, something
like
to,
part of a greater experiment that he was doing.
which
Um,
like is he legitimately he has psychopathy or sociopathy or whatever?
that was not ever determined, I don't think.
Because
At least
it seems like he like shows some signs and just kind of like being more curious about the world and like knowing how to empathize with it.
right, like he could study it to a certain
Yeah.
extent or
You can
understand
you
it.
can really study it by like, oh, experiment 125 fingers got blown off.
Yes, and like I didn't accomplish my goal, which was to kill him.
Ugh.
It said I failed. I mean, it's disturbing.
Wow.
So yeah, he had a numerical code. A lot of the pages were written in full code, and it was just all numbers, and then he had a key code written next to it. And so they were able to decode what he had written. So for example, after his second.
He had a cipher for himself.
So okay, here's the thing. He had his own cipher, and he later said he wrote it in cipher so that if somebody, like a neighbor or his family member or somebody
Ah,
came over, they wouldn't just open and see bomb. It was sort of
right,
like he wrote in code just in like he knew somebody could just open it and like
right,
decipher it, but he was like, in case somebody happened to glance at it, which
right,
like
right, right,
probably wouldn't happen, but in case David was like, knock knock, bro is
right.
here, he didn't want him to
I
just like,
showed up anyway.
remember me, your favorite friend. Yeah, so that was what he said, and so there was a code and they were able to decode it. And so after bomb number 2, for example, he had written experiment number 2, I had hoped that the victim would be blinded or at least have blown his hand off or be otherwise maimed. Well, live and learn. I wish I knew how to get a hold of some dynamite.
Oh my God. I mean, so
Yeah.
really just like critical critically thinking of these things as just test subjects and no emotion to them at all.
Trying to right. And at one point he even laughed because someone said like, do you have any remorse about attacking like an airline or whatever? And he's like, I couldn't stop laughing at the thought that I would feel sorry for attacking
Oh
someone
my
who works at an
God.
airline. I was like, okay.
Wow.
Yeah. Kind of creepy. So to be clear, also, like I said, the 40,000 pages did not include, our favorite book, Industrial Society and its Future.
Uh-huh.
That was separate. So on April 3rd of 96, the FBI were like, okay, we got you, bud. We're going to arrest you. They got him at his cabin, and he was charged with possession of the components of a bomb based on evidence found in his cabin. They had looked at it while he was out
Right.
and
And
then
then
like
did he just
snuck
like
out.
walk in one day or something?
Then
Or
they knew he was home and they like surrounded
caught him?
him. Yeah.
Gotcha.
So up until this point, the Unabomber was the most expensive investigation in FBI history, costing over $50 million.
Whoa.
Yeah, just one guy, $50 million.
Wow.
Despite Ted Kaczynski's lawyers urging him to consider an insanity plea, he rejected it and he refused. He tried to fire his lawyers for pushing an insanity plea because his whole thing was, I did this for a cause, for a reason. Like, I don't want.
He wanted the credibility.
Yeah, yeah, exactly. He's like, I don't want this to look like the ravings of a madman. I want this to look like I had a real.
I'm proud of my work.
Yeah, and it was for a cause, the like anarchist
Yeah.
cause, the anti-capitalist cause. And so he was like, if they call me insane or say I have mental issues, quote unquote, then what credibility do I get? It's all down the drain. Everything I worked on it.
Right.
Okay, so it's like, but
I'm so glad you stand by your morals so
yeah,
staunchly.
yeah. This you'll commit to, I guess.
Yeah.
So he kept rejecting an insanity plea to the point that he was like, I'm going to defend myself in court. But when he found out, but the judge was like, no, it's too late. You can't do that. So after a suicide attempt in jail, he found out they were trying to do an insanity plea, and he tried to take his own life that night. That's like
Okay.
how serious he was about not
Wow.
doing that. So a court-appointed psychiatrist diagnosed him with paranoid schizophrenia, but still said that he was fit to appear in court, etc.,
Okay.
speak for himself. And the U.S. district judge was like, no, you can't defend yourself. You need to stick with your lawyers. It's too late.
Right.
So on January 22nd, 1998, instead of going through trial, he kind of shocked everyone by just admitting guilt and accepting a sentence of life in prison without the possibility of parole in exchange for not basically going through with the insanity plea.
Wow.
He was like, it's either that or I just say I'm guilty and go straight to prison. So
Right.
that's what he
Yeah.
did.
Oh, okay.
So he's currently serving his sentences in a maximum security prison in Colorado. And after his arrest, it was speculated that he may have had another alias, one you may have heard of, called the Zodiac Killer.
Really? They think he'd be the Zodiac Killer?
Well, they kind of think everyone was the Zodiac Killer, to be fair. But there is a theory that he could be the Zodiac Killer. And
Okay.
it became suspicious because Ted had lived in the San Francisco Bay Area from 67 to 69. And both he and the Zodiac Killer were extremely smart, had an interest in bombs and codes. And both had written letters to newspapers demanding they be published, their work be
Right.
published.
Oh, wow.
However,
That is.
there's some weird crossover, but then you think about the MO and like the Zodiac Killer didn't bomb people,
Right.
and Ted Kaczynski didn't stab people, as far
Right.
as we know, at least. Like their
Right.
MOs don't match. So it's a weird coincidence, but who knows? Who knows?
Who knows?
Hasn't been proven yet. So for more information, I recommend you watch the mini series. But other than that, that is the story of good old Teddy boy.
Wow. Well done.
The end.
The
Whew.
end.
That was a long one. Apologies. Oh my God, that was really long. Sorry.
Mine was really long too. I thought mine was going to be short and then it didn't happen.
Oops.
Well, go figure. Just us, a couple Balloonatoons
we...
thinking that way.
Why would we ever say our episodes are going to be short? What a dumb thing to say.
Remember when they used to actually be 45 minutes?
What were we doing?
I don't know. Let's go back to that.
Yeah,
I think now we have more in-depth info. Our research is better done.
We're not like, oh, what does Wiki say? Okay,
right.
The end.
Anyway. All right. Well, thank you everyone for tuning in. It's by now we know the results of the Webbies when this comes out. I don't know what that is yet, but thank you again to everyone who has voted. I hope everyone had a good Mother's Day, and now we've got no holidays in our way except until the big ones.
The big ones. Birthday time.
Christine texted me a couple days ago and was like, exactly 1 month until your birthday, and then I had a near heart attack because I went, oh my God, I have been literally inside since I was 28.
That's so weird. I don't remember getting you a text or getting text from you on the 4th of May.
You want to know why? Because I didn't want to say 30 days or until you're 30.
Well, did you see my post on Instagram? My mom said, in 1 month, you'll be 30. Ha ha. And I was like,
and then I said, I'm frantically swiping through Bumble BFF right now to find a new younger friend.
I've already done that with you. I've got my younger friend. I'll have to replace you next year when you turn 30.
I know. I won't blame you. Well, anyway, thank you everyone. And from our Balloonatoon hearts to yours, I hope that everyone has a happy week coming up.
All right. Well, we'll see you next week.
And
that's
why
we
drink.